will follow, but I can't lose it.
Sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed ground. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now. Nestled at the corner of Long Pond and Andretti Road sits the Tricky Triangle. Opened in 1971 with eye-opening 3 distinct corners, each corner was configured to mimic a different historic speedway, but in the 50 years that have passed since then, Pocono has created its own legacy. That is no more true than in the Lionheart Retro Series, where it is known for dramatic finishes. With 2 of the closest 5 finishes in series history and an average margin of victory of just half a tenth of a second, there is no guarantee of victory here in the mountains. This is Pocono, and this is the MOZA Racing Pocono 250 presented by Extreme Scoring. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage of the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. Hello everyone, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted as always to be joined by the one, the only DJ Clark. And let's dive straight into our next level racing pre-race show. And DJ, 3 races done so far, but 3 very different racetracks. 4 now in a row where it's going to be a different sort of a challenge for our drivers. But this is a Triple Crown race. The intensity is higher. What's on the line is higher as well. Last year, Mark Cohn took 2 of the Triple Crown victories. No driver in Lionheart history has ever won all 3 of your Triple Crown races.
Indeed, they have not, and that really goes to show you just what it means to be able to take all 3. They are all 3 very difficult races to win in and of themselves, and to take all 3 is absolutely next level. Pocono here tonight, as you said, the first of the Triple Crowns. Everybody is a little bit on edge. Everybody wants to be able to take that victory, and with such a wide open track as this, so many opportunities to pass, so many different ways to get on by, it is just going to ramp everything up to 11.
It's been busy since we got our season underway on March the 3rd. In just over a month, we'll have done 4 races, but the drivers will get a short reprieve before the next segment of the schedule. We'll head to Phillip Island, Brands Hatch for back-to-back road races, then a series debut at the Nashville Speedway before heading to Indianapolis for the second of our Triple Crown races. It's a race today that has been seen plenty of cautions in the past. Indianapolis last year, what a run that we had until the closing stages where the gloves came off and things really did get a little bit more intense. Let's run you down through your next level racing driver standings, where it's a Graphics LC Motorsports driver and a familiar one at that leads the points here, with Mike Rasmas in control but just 9 points clear of Michael O'Brien and MadWorks Motorsports. Race 1 was all about Graphics LC. 1, 2, and 3 across the line. MadWorks have been slowly creeping their way forward, and that was really on display last time out at Watkins Glen, but also the week before that at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway.
Yeah, indeed it was, but we've been able to see that disparity come back there. MadWorks on the attack there with O'Brien and Taylor. Don't count out Ricky Harden, though. That Raven Motorsports silver driver, he is always a fierce competitor here on the oval circuits. He is definitely one to watch out for.
Only 1 rookie in the top 10, somewhat surprising given that we've got double-digit rookies in this Lionheart Retro Series. Quick look at your Retro Series team standings presented by HyperX, where MadWorks Motorsports, even after their disappointment at the end of that season opener at Homestead, Miami, where all 3 cars were in contention for a podium, well, all 3 cars had issues one by one and they dropped like flies. They are leading these championships by almost 40 points from Graphics LC, who have taken a step back after that initial race victory. Raven Lavoie Motorsports in 3rd with the RSR by Butt Kicker team. Somewhat surprising that they're down in 4th, but I think today maybe we'll see David Rodriguez amp up his momentum as we roll ourselves into this Triple Crown race. Here's a look at your rookie standings. Rodriguez competed in a number of races in 2021, but because he didn't do a full season, he hasn't crossed the threshold. He is classified as a rookie, but give a shout out as well to Backfire Motorsports DJ, new to the series, not just Retro Series, but Lionheart as a whole. They sit 2nd through 4th, and all 3 drivers have been conservative to start the season off, but they've slowly been getting more embroiled in the fight, and I think from here they'll start to kick things up a notch.
I think they will too, and I like that approach from the backfire drivers. You know, driving these cars aggressively can always come back to bite you. You want to be nice and smooth, and especially in a competitive series such as this, it's best to just let the action come to you. And when you start to feel a little bit more comfortable with those you're racing around and the car itself, that's when you can start to apply a little bit more pressure, and look for them here in the later three quarters of the season.
Quick look at your series details presented by Gomez Sim Industry. It's the 6th season of this Lionheart Retro Series, where we campaign the open-wheel behemoth that is the Lotus 79, designed to go racing across the world on road and street courses, but we show just how fun it can be to run around the ovals in the United States. 7,000 in cash and prizes on the line. All drivers have a custom fixed setup. There's no complaints about my setup wasn't up to scratch. Your 2 hands, your 2 feet, that's what you use to figure this machine out. Triple Crown races start today, but it should be noted, DJ, that this is the only of the Triple Crown races which isn't double points, and that is crucial when you think about a championship scenario.
Yeah, it certainly is. It definitely is a way to ease into that Triple Crown a little bit more. And when Indian Auto Club come up, that could be the big decider with the championship as close as we have seen. But any win, any victory that you can take, you still want to be maximizing those points as early on as possible to try to give yourself a little bit of a cushion as we go along through the season.
Remember as well, Aaron Morgan on a part-time schedule, really only going to run the road courses, so we won't see him today. He's not defending that championship. And as part of that Avatar Order Racing camp that splintered after the end of 2021, Aaron Morgan and Avatar Order Racing expected to be dethroned come the end of this calendar year. Here's a look at your event details, brought to you by MOZA Racing. It's the 6th trip to the Tricky Triangle in our 6 years of Retro Series competition. And the most interesting number, 5 years, 5 pole sitters, 5 winners. Only once has someone put it on pole position and worked their way into HyperX victory lane. That came in Season 1, where we had our largest margin of victory, just over 1/10 of a second. Going off of that, 4 previous winners have started outside of the top 10. The lowest of them, Lionel Callisto, 2 years ago, started down in 27th position. It is a race, like we said earlier, that expects to see cautions, and they are lengthy caution periods as well. But you look at that average margin of victory, DJ, and you get ready to break out your camera coming to the checkered flag.
Yeah, you do indeed, and it's really the nature of this circuit. As we said, very, very wide around here. Expect to see 4, 5 wide even on restarts as we get going. And then as everyone continues around, multiple overtaking opportunities, multiple lines through to particularly turns 1 and 3 around here. It just sets up fantastic stuff, and it really comes to the fore because it allows for drivers to bring their own experience, their own racecraft into the mix. And so drivers can kind of adapt a little bit the line that they want to run to suit their driving style around this tricky triangle.
Let's talk about this track then. Nestled in the Pocono Mountains on the corner of Long Pond and Andretti Road. This is a fabulous facility. We are racing the older version of Pocono, a little bit bumpier, turn 1 slightly different to how it was. How it is, I should say, in the newer version of Pocono, which will be on display in just over a week's time in the first of our Triple Crown in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. All 3 turns very different. Turn 1, 14 degrees of banking, modeled after the Trenton Speedway. Turn 2, 8 degrees of banking, known as the tunnel turn, modeled after the famed Brickyard and the much flatter 4 corners that you've got there. Turn 3 is modeled after the Milwaukee Mile, a place that we should be seeing some good action later on in the season. 6 degrees of banking there, the flattest of them all. What Turn 4 indeed. It's ridden on the outside of Turn 3, and it's going to be something we refer back to over the course of the race. DJ, you raced here a year ago in this series. Talk to us about what it's like for the drivers here.
Well, what it's like is you take the green flag and you start to get things going. It is absolutely hair-raising diving down into turn one. It is the highest banked corner. Even with this legacy version, you can go low, you can go high, you can even go super high. Lots of areas to take it, and then everything starts to funnel down a little bit as you go down into the tunnel turn. That tends to be a little bit more single file, although you can get a little bit of a run on the outside. And then as you work your way into the final corner here, the Milwaukee Mile corner, it's like a giant fan, Arjuna. Everybody kind of takes the same entry, and then you'll see multiple lines fan out across the track as drivers pick their apex. It's the nature of the corner, but you've got to be very, very careful not to wash up too much. It's very easy to take too early of an apex, get onto the throttle, and get a little bit of understeer that can bring you right out into the outside wall.
Here's a look at the track, and let's take a look at your track conditions as qualifying has gotten underway. 5 minutes on the board, 2 laps, and the track is to the driver's pleasure. There's no other cars there to play a factor. Warm, that's the name of the game here. Middle of May, getting into the afternoon, evening portion of the race, but high humidity, DJ. That's something that stood out to you when we were looking at these conditions just before we went live.
Yeah, it did indeed. 75% humidity. That means this air is going to be very thick and very soupy. That means there's going to be a lot of air to push out of the way. As a result, look for the leader to be in a little bit more of a detrimental position, and look for the draft to be even stronger around here. That's going to be a big talking point, I think, as it works its way around.
So cars getting themselves dialed up for lap 1 in this qualifying session. As Chris Reagan, who's come across the line in that 19 machine, has gone well here at Pocono in the past. Looking to try and get up to victory lane for the first time this season, and indeed in his career. Fowler's gone to provisional pole, though, with a 48.360. Can he improve from there? Plenty of drivers working themselves up to speed. We talked about Mark Cohn's victory last time out. We'll have a 6th different winner if things play out as we expect, and there's no major drama, at least for now as well. The possibility is that we'd look at a 6th different pole sitter, but that does mean that Chris Lanini, Michael O'Brien would not end up on pole position. Here comes Reagan in that 19 machine, a quarter of a second off the pace as he rounds himself through turn 3, and Zaldo's gone up to 7th. And across the line, Reagan improves, but not up to pole, only to 4th.
Indeed, and watch for these drivers to set faster times on their second lap out. These cars very sensitive to that fuel change, as we've talked about a couple of times, as Fowler able to get an even better time there. Trevor Malone sliding in right behind him, and David Surwa able to come in provisional pole. That is a bit of a surprise. Surwa known for being a little bit better on the road side of things.
He's been getting better and better, though, you know, when it comes to the ovals. Now working with Raven Motorsport as part of the Raven Lavoie Motorsports team. On pole for now, 200ths clear, and seems to be backing it down, I tell you. I think he's happy with that lap time.
I think he is as well, and he's got about 200ths of a second advantage over George Anzaldo, who put in a fantastic lap there to get himself up into P2. Still waiting for about a third of the field to come across the line, but yeah, Surwa is going to come on into pit lane.
Don't hate this call. I think it's a good idea to practice a pit entry here. The possibility of green flag pit stops may be slightly diminished compared to some of our other races, but always good to get a sense of what that's going to be like. Looks like Chris Lanini, a former pole sitter, is backing it down as well. He'll start in 12th. David Rodriguez has jumped up to 5th. Only a couple of cars still yet to put in a lap time. We are looking at a couple of end-of-line penalties to talk about as well. Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, Scott Holmes, Marius Valiocas, Danny Roberts, Matthew Schofield all have that end-of-line penalty as Harden across the line will only jump himself up to 24th position. Luke Daniels has gone up to 6th, his best start on the season so far. And Zaldo's 2nd, but I think with 30 seconds in qualifying, the only driver we might see improve is maybe Cristobal Valenzuela, maybe Craig Forsyth, but this man here, the man that tied for the championship at the end of December last year.
Yeah, Matt Taylor here as he works his way through the tunnel turn there, carrying a good line, late apex. That's exactly how you want to take it. Really pushing here now as he goes into the final corner again. That later apex not pushing all the way down to those inside rumble strips. Those can really upset the car, and he's going to call it quits. He's going to come on into pit lane.
You don't want that in the race itself, that's for sure. But I tell you what, qualifying is done. The time for talk is over. The time for action is nigh. Let's go trackside here in the Pocono Mountains to take a look at your starting grid for round 4 of the Lionheart Retro Series, the MOZA Racing Pocono 250. And so here's a look at your butt kicker starting grid. It is David Sirov with his 4th pole position in his Retro Series career. What is it about the ovals? He has fallen in love with them. George Anzaldo on the outside of the front row. Great qualifying performance for your series organizer. While Chris Fowler, 1,000th behind Anzaldo, lines up inside of row 2 with Hugo Gallas. We talked about Backfire Motorsports and how they've been consistently getting more in the mix. None more present is Hugo Gallas there. David Rodriguez, Luke Daniels share row 3, while Richie Hearn, your former IndyCar driver, lines up in 7th alongside another of the Backfire Motorsports machines, Rodrigo Munoz. Trevor Malone, Tyler Graff roll from the edge of the top 10, while Matt Taylor and Chris Lanini start 11th and 12th positions. Michael O'Brien, Jim Herrick, 13th and 14th. Sharing row 8 is Craig Forsyth and Mike Rigney, while Mike Rasmas and Robert Mike start 17th and 18th. Adam Fraser and Christopher Reagan, 19th and 20th, with Will Gibson and Cody Wendon just missing out on the top 20, with Gibson only just over a 10th off the pace. That's how close it was in qualifying. Gary Godso and Ricky Harden will share row 12, while Dustin Wardlow, the Candyman, slides from 25th alongside Alex Guyon in that 08 machine. There's our third of the Backfire Motorsports car. Cristobal Valenzuela's got some work to do. The final car with a lap time on the board. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Danny Roberts, Scott Holmes. This is where we get to that end of line smorgasbord of penalties. Isaac Snyder, no penalty for him, just not getting the lap time in. Adam Young, no penalty for him either, as well as with Brian Hoffman and Brett Accord. But Marius Valiokis, after an impressive showing at Watkins Glen, does have some work to do. He'll start last in our field of 35 Lotus 79s that will rumble in the Pocono Mountains. As always, we've got featured onboards to walk you through, so let's not dilly-daddle. We got a long pace lap here, so we got plenty to talk about, but let's start with your butt kicker onboard camera, where sim racing is better with butt kicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com.
Next up, we have Tyler Graff at the Graphic Esports camera. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com.
New look for Tyler Graff. We'll talk about that during the race. Mike Rigney has your MOZA Racing onboard camera, redefining sim racing. Go further, go faster with MOZA Racing. Visit mozaracing.com.
And finally, Chris Fowler carries the HyperX on board. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
And the beauties of virtual broadcasting is we'll get onboard looks with every single one of our Lotus 79s here today. So 35 cars, multiple onboard looks with all of them. Let's also talk very quickly about the fuel window here at DJ. 100 laps, and a fuel window can go anywhere from 30 to 33 laps here. If we go green, and I don't think we will, we could see drivers trying to eke out a 2-stop race. The reality is, though, we might be looking at a fuel mileage race.
Yeah, we very well could. A couple of years ago, we may remember that happened around here, that fuel mileage race, so always good to be keeping an eye on it. Don't be surprised if you see a couple of drivers happy to hang out behind in the draft of a liter or two. Just back off of that right pedal a little bit and sip a little bit of fuel.
David Sirois has 4 poles now in his Retro Series career, and for someone that we thought would be good on the road courses, all 4 of them have come on the ovals. He has never been able to convert, though, to a trip down to HyperX Victory Lane. Will today be the day? Our first Triple Crown of our 6th season of the Lionheart Retro Series. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the MOZA Racing Pocono 250, presented by Extreme Scoring. Great start from David Sirois, but the reality is you're not breaking the toe in the early stages of this lap. They thunder themselves down into turn 1. Couple of cars looking 2 and 3 wide, but we keep it clean, we keep it tidy. This is what we need to see.
Exactly. Everybody nice and fanning out there, giving plenty of room here in the early stages of the lap. That's exactly what you want to see from a big super speedway race like this. Let everybody get settled in, let those nerves die down, and then start to be aggressive a little later on in the lap.
Side by side through the tunnel turn, I think a little bit more realistic in this Lotus 79 than it is in your Indy cars, whether it be the DW12 or the IR18 that we also see in Lionheart competition, looking backwards as they come out of turn 3, but leading lap 1, it is your pole position winner, David Sirod. There you see the mad scramble further on in the pack. Fowler and Zaldo, Gallus and Rodriguez, the top 5. George and Zaldo getting a little bit mugged by Fowler on the start.
Yeah, he was a little bit taken out. I think he was just a little bit slow on the reaction there to get going, but Anzaldo trying to hold on to the best that he can into that 4th place position. He doesn't need to worry too much about slipping back here at this point. If you can keep yourself within about the top 10 or the breakaway of the race, that's all you need to do. Just keep yourself in contention for the last 25 laps.
Here's a look on board with Jim Herrick in that 40 sim racing car as Matt Taylor gets a little bit squirrely coming through the tunnel turn. We'll hold off for now. You see Reagan in that 19 machine looking feisty as well. Further up towards the front of your field, looks like Gallus trying to defend from David Rodriguez. Just look at the Hornet's nest. You've got 35 cars, only one is slipping backwards, and that's Brian Hoffman, who's been a little bit conservative to start this race off, but I don't think that's the worst decision in the world. We're looking at the front, but look at the Hornet's nest back in the field.
Yeah, exactly. It's getting a little bit feisty here as drivers want to position themselves into that area, like I said, but you don't want to be too crazy here early on. Little bit of side-by-side, but I'm not seeing anything that really I would call over-aggressive here. Arjuna, oh, we've got a spinner!
And the first caution flies. It's Tyler Graff in that 98 machine. We're not even going to get the opportunity to talk about the new livery that he's running today before he's got major drama. Luke Daniels, who was having a best qualifying performance of the series, gets mixed up in that one as well. And DJ, you were talking about how things were looking calm, how things were looking smooth. I'm going to put the blame on you, commentator's curse.
100%. I take complete and total responsibility for that. As I think here this was just a little bit of miscommunication between Graff and Daniels. I'm not sure that they kind of realized where they were. Let's watch them as they dive into the tunnel turn. Yep, there it is.
Yeah, now does Daniels try and turn it a bit early, or is Tyler Graff maybe just running out a little bit wide? Hard to tell. We'll grab an onboard look with Tyler Graff and from his vantage point, because that will give us a better indication. Here's the look from up above on that roll bar as they slide their way down into that turn 2. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
I'm going to put it at about 7 onto Luke Daniels there. The best way to take that corner really is to take a later apex. Tyler taking a little bit more of what I would consider to be the optimal racing line. Daniels should have recognized that Tyler was there and given him just a little bit more space, but overall a racing incident.
See if race control has anything to say about that. Would likely be post-race, an end-of-line penalty if any further punishment is required. We slow things down and we talk then about the long pace laps that we're expecting here today, DJ.
Yeah, it is a very, very long circuit, 2.5 miles, the same distance as Indianapolis or Daytona. So it's a long, long way for these cars to get around. And truthfully, that can be a good thing for these drivers. You get the adrenaline up in the battles a little bit. You get your blood pumping. This gives you a moment to just calm it back down, take stock of the race, and think about that strategy.
And we talked about it in our pre-show. It's a track that expects to see plenty of cautions. The lowest 6, the most 9, averaging at about 8 over our 5 seasons. The race still has never finished under caution, as I see a comment in our YouTube chat. Do get in touch with us if you're watching along. Let us know who you're cheering for, where you're watching from. The penalty, 5 hours of driving one of the 44 configurations of the infield here. I don't disagree with that. Those all look quite painful to me.
Yeah, they certainly are a little bit interesting to drive, Arjuna. I've been able to take out some cars on them, and it's a little bit like driving Sebring for the first time. You just don't quite know where you're going.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Again, let's talk to you about the weather conditions here. It's cooled down slightly, and it's only going to get cooler from here. What does that humidity, though, do here at Pocono, DJ?
Well, what it means is you're going to have a little bit more downforce to work with on these cars, so you'll be just a hair you're able to slide through the corners a little bit better, you're going to have more air pushing down on the car. And as I talked about earlier, what that also means for drivers who are following behind is there's more air around for that front car to brake. And so the draft is going to be a little bit stronger. You're going to be able to gain more speed if you're following behind, or if you're on one of those fuel-saving strategies, you are going to be able to save a little bit more fuel by backing off of the pedal just all that much more. So the increased humidity really does help a lot of these drivers that are following behind.
Now, are the lights out on the pace car? I didn't see them. By the way, David Sewer are no longer leading the race. They're still on, so at least 2.5 miles under caution still to come. As that's quite patient from the flagman. Doesn't have to wave it. He's no Aaron Likens, that's for sure. When it comes to dirty air, DJ, I mean, I talked about, you know, having 2 hands, 2 feet to try and work your way through. You don't have the in-car tools that you have in the IR18. How difficult is it, especially through turn 3, the flattest of all 3 of our corners, to try and avoid running up a little bit too wide?
It's very difficult. You really have to try to take a different angle into the corner as much as possible. That's why you're going to see that fanning out effect that I talk about, is because you want to just try to get a little bit of clean air onto that front wing, as much of that as possible, to be able to get it. Now, what that can do for you, because it can actually help you set up a better run coming out of the corner and into it, but what you really have to watch out for is if you decide to take a little bit of a different line into the corner that's going to find you drifting up into the wake of a car in front of you, you'll get a massive kick of understeer midway through the corner, and it can send you up into the outside wall. So you've got to be very careful and constantly on it.
I love this car. I mean, again, not designed to go racing on ovals, but it puts on a great show. I am curious as to whether we're going to see any tire games in effect, because we know that bias ply tires are designed to go the full distance of the race, but that was one thing starting the season off, DJ, where we were getting word from the drivers, from the setup builder Andrew Kinsella, that maybe that has changed very slightly.
Yeah, it has, and with his temperatures as hot as they are around here, I think that may throw a little bit into perspective. With as flat as these corners are, you can definitely see some abrasion on these tires. We may see some pit stop strategies being taken. I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be the way to go, but it could be interesting.
Our cameras decide to sink into the face of the earth, but we're ready to go. The pace car drifts its way back onto the safety of pit lane. About to start lap number 7. Green flag back out here at Pocono for your MOZA Racing Pocono 250. The snake forming as they snake their way down in towards turn 1. Some 3-4 wide action further back as they all try and jockey for some position. These restarts are going to be crucial to hold some track position. There's about 4 rows of 2 wide action and a nice clean start overall.
Yeah, everybody able to get their way through the first corner nice and easy. Still a little bit more jockeying around there in the back, but everybody seems to be relatively calm, hoping here the tunnel turn is not going to be anybody's downfall once again. You've got to be hyper vigilant coming through there. Make sure not to cut down on anybody.
Clearly that's the place where we're going to expect a bit of carnage, a bit of chaos, just because it invites 2 wide action, but it's not always suitable to try and lunge it to the inside. Looking back at the battle for 17th, where Alex Guyon has already gained 8 positions, but he's not the biggest mover. Behind him, it's Danny Roberts, who's plus 10 on the day so far. At the front of your field, Chris Fowler already 8/10 clear, but still in drafting range. You would expect him to get closed up by those drivers behind. Left side of the screen, you can see those team affiliations. You've got 2 Raven teammates at the front, Sirouan and Zaldo, both representing Raven Lavoie. And I've just realized that if we go green from here, DJ, it's a fuel mileage race.
It is indeed, and rest assured there's going to be some drivers thinking about that, as that looked like George and Zaldo getting a little bit offline. But drivers are already going to be thinking about that fuel strategy as we work our way through here, and nobody better at that fuel strategy game than the driver who currently sits in 3rd, David Rodriguez.
Here comes Rodriguez, but he's not saving. He's going on the offense in that vector by RSR. Green and black. Lotus 79 will tuck back into line as behind him Gallers and Richie Hearn squabble alongside one another. It's Hearn down low as he gets plenty of clean air and will slide up the track and try and get the move done on Gallers gets a good run. You usually expect the outside line to get the better run. 1.8 seconds though. Chris Fowler has waved goodbye to the rest of the field.
And that 1.8 seconds is crucial. That is out of effective draft range, so he is just going to be able to run his own race here at this point. Now, his only detriment being he is going to have zero hope of doing any fuel saving, but I like this strategy from Fowler, just going for broke here early on.
It's a dangerous game to be playing, though. That's the reality of the situation. It's if you end up by yourself, then it might work out nicely, but if everyone else is saving fuel, maybe Chris Fowler in a little bit of a pickle. Have a look at this action, though, as they slide their way through turn one again. Just look at the Backfire Motorsports car using all of the track available. That's what you really want to be able to do. 2.3 the gap out front to Chris Fowler, but then everyone is in a pack. Dustin Wardlow's gone a lap down. Not sure if he got mixed up in that incident with Tyler Graf and Luke Daniels. Graf has retired. Luke Daniels still circulating and still on the lead lap.
Yeah, he does look a little bit down on pace, though. You'll see him there streaking across the back of your screen, so definitely a little bit out of sorts there for Luke Daniels. There was some pretty heavy damage to the front end of that car, so it's not going to be handling well. Driver's able to relatively withstand any of that aero wash coming out of turn 3. I'm impressed thus far with what I'm seeing from everybody and their restraint. I hope to not jinx it again there.
David Rodriguez is now in second and trying to close that deficit in front of him, as in the middle comes Michael O'Brien in that 45. Looks like Trevor Malone might get pinched down very slightly as they ride themselves over the bump. Again, the legacy version of Pocono. Here comes them 3 wide as Craig Forsyth tries to join the fun. You look to the inside of the tunnel turn. This is where we had that drama before. Mike Rasmussen has a great view of the action as we jump on board with his 68 machine. We're back into single file. Fowler continues to stretch that advantage. Last time around was 3/10 quicker than Rodriguez behind.
It was indeed, and notice there from Rasmussen what you saw him doing, taking that later line into the corner, a later apex to keep as much clean air as possible. That is going to allow him to be able to carry speed and not lose anything due to the aero wake. That's some very, very heads-up driving here early on from Mike Rasmussen.
Oh, there's all sorts of cameras underside the track, apparently. But, apologies, that's all I can do, and laugh a little bit as well. Here comes Michael O'Brien closing on your pole sitter, who's sliding backwards, but I don't hate this. I really do not hate this. I think it's a good spot to be fuel saving. The drama might come is if we do get a couple of cautions and Sirwa finds himself maybe struggling a little bit with the track position. That's maybe where you'd argue the danger lies, as Herrick will sling it around the outside as Lanini looks down low. Race winner to kick off the season, mired back in 14th position.
Yeah, but he's still got plenty of time to try to move his way forward here, does Lanini. He doesn't have to be super aggressive here early on, kind of like you were talking about with David Sirwa. Doesn't need to be pushing that hard here at this point. You can kind of do a little bit of coasting. We talked about that in the season opener at Homestead, that if you can just keep yourself in the midst of the pack here, that should position yourself in a good battle for later on.
Working lap 13 of 100. Remember, no double points for this first Triple Crown race. Double points for Indianapolis, as well as our season finale Auto Club, where the title will hopefully, and based on last year, potentially come down to the very last lap. Sirwa now almost out of the top 10. I don't think he's got damage. His car looks okay, as Gary Godso is going to peel off into pit lane. Not sure what's happened to him.
Not sure either. I'll have to see if I can double check on that. And yeah, Sirwa looking like he's struggling for a little bit of pace here. I think he may be either on a super conservative fuel strategy or just not used to running in dirty air. That's one of the problems you can run into. You really have to take advantage of the practice sessions that the Lionheart Racing Series puts up and the Lionheart Retro Series puts up, is you really need to learn how this car handles when you're riding behind somebody else, because it is a wildly different beast in dirty than clean air.
Rasmussen and Forsyth squabbling over what is 7th position. Let's take a look at what happened to Gary Godso in that team race versus blue and red. So out of turn 3, looks okay. Oh, he smacks the wall, and he's going to hit the other wall as well, isn't he? Yep, there we go. Big contact, and that's likely going to be day done, you'd have to assume. We'll grab a look on board. It's so easy to do here. We talked about the dangers of turn 3, DJ. Illustrated perfectly for us.
Yeah, indeed. And you see Gary there trying to hunt for some clean air down on the low side, but just with the cars fanning out in front of him, really nowhere for him to go. Got onto the throttle pedal just a hair early, and that's what washed him up into the outside wall.
Not the first time that we'll see that, not the last time that we'll see that by any means as well. Looking back at Mike Razmas, let's have a look towards the grouping slightly further at the front of your field as we'll jump on board with Richie Hearn, who is, for once, not having any internet issues, which is going to make everyone around him smile with a big old smile as they work their way through turn one. Rodriguez still 2.5 back. He hasn't really been able to close on Fowler, which makes me wonder if maybe both cars now in a similar game in terms of the fuel. And Richie Hearn right behind George Anzaldo.
Yeah, and interesting there what Richie is doing. You normally don't see drivers taking down to that super, super low line through one. They normally tend to go a little bit towards a midline, especially earlier in the race when the cars are a little bit heavier. The tires aren't perfectly up to snuff yet. But Richie very clearly feeling confident with that car and able to dive it down that low. So he's clearly got some tricks in his bag.
Again, he's got experience with open wheel racing in America and with ovals as well. We'll talk more about his record later on. Let's talk though about the record of Chris Lanini very quickly in that 92. I mentioned pole position for him in season 2, but the dramatic thing when I reflect on that race, DJ, only led 2 laps in his Pocono career here in the Retro Series. When you're on pole, you do expect to lead a couple more laps, but it shows that pole is no silver bullet to work your way to victory lane.
No, it's really not. And one of the things that makes Pocono so special in that regard is just long blast on the front stretch here. It is so long as compared to so many other speedways that you can find yourself losing that position, losing that pole position in the blink of an eye. And that's really what's happened to Chris over the course here. And you can just find yourself falling backwards as our pole sitter here, David Sirois, is doing right now. He's all the way back down in 14th.
Suboptimal for David Sirois so far. Looking at Richie Hearn's record very quickly, by the way, I don't think he's actually ever raced at Pocono in top-level American open wheel racing. Hopefully we'll get the chance at the end of this race to talk to him. Lovely guy, has commentated on his fair share of Lionheart races as well. Here comes Alex Gouillon on his teammate David Sirois. No faffing around here. David Sirois back to 15th. He is sliding and plummeting like a rock.
Yeah, and I was riding on board with him taking a look. It just looks like he's a little bit overly cautious coming through the corners, backing off a hair too much, almost like he just doesn't trust the car in dirty air. And that's really a result there of just not feeling it outright. He may come alive a little bit later when the cars get lighter and looser, but right now just does not seem like he has a comfortable ride.
Now I wonder if maybe he's run himself into the wall, although looking at the car, it looks pretty mint if you ask me. Up front, it's closing. It's closing ever so slightly, as word is that Luke Daniels, who is very much off the pace, is being basically given a black and white flag by race control saying, hurry it up or we're going to have to remove you from the track. They want to make sure that there's no traffic chaos, we'll put it that way. Rodriguez had the gap down to about 2.2 seconds a few moments ago. Chris Fowler has responded this last time around.
Yes, he has definitely trying to keep that gap as much as possible, and I like that ability to respond from Fowler. That means he was holding back a little bit, trying to restrain himself from going all out there, and that means he's still got a lot left in the tank and wants to keep Rodriguez at arm's length as much as possible.
Watching the battle for 5th, where Michael O'Brien leads Razmas, Gallows, and Wenz, and O'Brien's again deprived of a victory last time out by a teammate, although you don't hear it in his voice that he's dejected. He knows the pace is there. He knows his time will come. 3 races so far, 3 different winners, 2 of them from the MadWorks Motorsports team. Can Michael O'Brien at some point this season make it all 3 drivers heading their way into HyperX victory lane as the car's pulling off onto pit road? That's Luke Daniels, who I think has got the memo that unfortunately he's too far off the pace. He's going to have to park the car for today. Is officially now 20% done with this race, working lap 21 of 100.
Yeah, and that unfortunately was something that was always probably going to happen there. These Lotus 79s, they're not like modern Indy cars where you get some damage, you can change out a wing, you can do anything like that. If you get front wing damage in these cars, you really cannot fix it. These are not interchangeable parts on these machines, and so you pick up that damage, you're pretty much stuck with it for the rest of the running.
Now, this is a car that I like a good race at the Nordschleife. People who know me will testify to that. However, I've mastered an Indy car around the Nordschleife. I've mastered an LMP. I say mastered. I'm able to finish a lap at a decent rate of knots at the Nordschleife. I've done it in an LMP1 car as well, even a stock car, a NASCAR Cup Series machine. But this Lotus 79, I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's that I decide to be authentic and try and heel toe everywhere I go around the track. I've never been able to complete a lap around the Nordschleife. But you know, DJ, these cars race wonderfully around there.
They certainly do, and my adversity towards the Nordschleife that I just can't remember it for whatever reason has prevented me from really taking it around. But yeah, they do handle wonderfully well. I've been able to call many, many races in these machines from the Nordschleife, and they are a treat to watch when they just fling themselves through the corners. It's absolutely spectacular to watch.
If you like a bit of the green hell, do remember that this coming weekend on RaceSpotTV, in partnership with the wonderful folks at Radio Show Limited, we've got the first of our VCO Grand Slams, an iRacing special event where physical hardware is on the line, which is wonderful to see. Usually it's just bragging rights, but now there's a memento for winning there, and indeed for surviving the 24 hours. David Rodriguez has been passed by George Anzaldo. I think maybe Rodriguez realizes he can't close to Fowler, and maybe better to do that fuel saving. We talk about his fuel saving now. I don't know if it's his right foot or if it's the car. I think he's still under investigation for what he did at Iowa last year.
Well, Arjuna, I can tell you, I was trying to fuel save right ahead of him, and he was able to pass me. So I don't know how he was able to eke that out at Iowa last year. But David's certainly one to watch when it comes to fuel saving. I certainly think here that he's got a good strategy. He just kind of, as you said, recognizes that he probably can't catch Fowler, and a little bit better to stay in line. Richie Hearn looking like he's going to get by him, but I don't think that would faze me too much if I'm David Rodriguez here. Maybe run behind these two. He's got a nice healthy gap of about 2.2 seconds back to Michael O'Brien. Indeed, backing off there a little bit, just going to let Richie on by.
Great look at the rear view of that Lotus 79. You could also see that mirror, see more of the car than anything else, but at least there's a slight driver aid to be able to spot your fellow competitors back towards the edge of the top 20. In fact, outside of the top 20, we see Robert Mikes, Chris Reagan, Will Gibson, as well as Marius Valiokis with his end-of-line penalty trying to work his way forward. Really good pace from Valiokis. Let's very quickly touch on our MOZA Racing driver profile. There it is. Chris Reagan, 43 career starts, 20 top 10s, 10 top 5s, so fairly consistently at the sharp end of the field. It does tend to get mixed up in accidents a lot, which is not always indicative of the driver, but this is just, you see the way that they're racing so close. It's a series that invites chaos. First start in Road America, but the best finish came here last year, second, as he tries to make it one better and get that first victory of his Retro Series career.
Yeah, and the lines he's running here, he made me mired down a little bit in the field, but he's running some very good lines. I'm impressed seeing what he's doing here. Probably wants to slot back into line here ahead of Valiokis. A little bit surprised that he didn't there. That's some good, respectful driving out of the 19. Big dive to the inside, though.
Love it. And now he might actually lose out because of that. You enter hard, you leave the corner a little bit slower, and there goes that RSR by butt kicker car, but he's going to get checked up behind Robert Mikes, I believe that is in the red and white. Look at how close they are, and Reagan trying to fight back on the inside of Valiokis in that green and black. Oh, this really is the hornet's nest, and you can see they've really dropped off the pace. These cars, 16.5 seconds behind your race leader. They are very much in danger if things go on like this, and we have a long run of green flag pit stops, of going a lap down. Here's the track map. You can see the visual separation that Chris Fowler enjoys over the rest of the field.
Yeah, Fowler just absolutely running away with this. He's been able to rebuild that gap up to about 3 seconds here at this point. Really, really impressive stuff. And Zaldo continuing to be there in second. But this Hornet's Nest in the back, this is where to keep your eye on.
I love it. Again, I say this all the time. A car that was not designed to go oval racing, but you wouldn't know that if you didn't know the wonderful legacy that this car had. Of course, Formula One has brought back ground effect this year. This was one of the cars that pioneered it as Rodrigo Munoz makes his way back up into the top 10, getting on past Trevor Malone. You can also see David Rodriguez has recovered third, at least for the time being, away from Richie Hearn. You talk about porpoising in the modern era of Formula One, not such a huge issue in this generation of ground effect. However, because of the way that the skirts were, if you got up on the curb, you'd lose all that downforce and you have your own drastic consequences. It's good to see that ground effect pioneered by this Lotus 79, still a aerodynamic concept that very much holds true in 2022. As we get closer and closer to 1/3 marker of this race, we get closer and closer, DJ, to our first cycle of green flag pit stops.
Yeah, indeed. And you mentioned a little bit earlier, Arjun, when we were watching qualifying, the drivers having to practice coming into pit lane. This is a deceptively tricky pit lane to enter in on. You're coming in at maximum speed and having to get these tires woed back down, these cars pulled back down. Remember, you have no artificial pit lane speed limiter. The only speed check that you have is your right foot. So I would not be surprised if you see some drivers maybe struggle a little bit trying to get these cars to break down to that pit speed limit.
Yeah, and it's not the first time we would have seen it either, as here comes Lanini down low on Trevor Malone. Gets pinched a little bit lower than he'd like. Jim Herrick in that 40 sim racing machine behind, looking on from the popcorn seat as through the Milwaukee Mile modeled 6 degree of banking, turn 3 they come. 29 laps done. Chris Fowler leads by 3.1 from George Zaldo, David Rodriguez, Richie Hearn. That second group, the peloton, trying to chase down that Madworks Motorsports machine, looking for 2 victories in 4 races to kick off 2022. O'Brien, Rasmus, Gallus is that third pack, while we're watching technically the 5th, but they're not far behind. Forsyth, Wenton, and Munoz leads this group with Malone, Lanini, Herrick, Guyon in the mix here. Fighting hard looks great, but it's the age-old adage in motorsports and the age-old conundrum. Looks great, it costs you time. Leaders doing a 48.5, basically. These cars last time around, some of them doing 49.3s, some of them doing 49 flats. It's not an inconsiderable amount of time that they're losing.
No, it's not, and they're specifically losing it through turns 2 and 3. You're able to go 2 wide pretty easy and maintain time through turn 1, but coming through there in 2 and 3, that's where you're getting offline, you're taking different lines, and you're having to sort of check yourself up and check yourself against the other drivers around you. And here for Valiokis, this is a sight you necessarily don't want to see. There are 2 wide in front of you because that means there's less clean air for you to be grabbing off of the cars in front, although he's going to make some good work there around the outside.
That's David Sirwa all the way down in 23rd position now. Going back to what you just said, check yourself before you wreck yourself. I had to work that one in. It was sitting there right on a plate for me to go and munch that away. 31, about to be 32 laps complete as Valiokis. Let's talk about him very quickly here, DJ. I mean, come on, you got a feel for him last time out. We were talking about that pit road limiter. So who's coming down to pit road? That looks like Will Gibson will be the first to box and locks up the tires, but I think he's okay. But Valiokis got that pit road penalty that we've been talking about, speeding in the pits, and from there, fighting for the lead of the race. All it could do was go downhill, and down the hill it went.
Yeah, it certainly did, and it shows you the sort of mental game that can come into having that happen. You get a mistake like that in the pits, you have to come back down through pit lane, loses your mental focus a little bit. We saw that spin late race from Valiokis there later on, and it just went from bad to worse for the RSR driver, and you really, really had to feel for him. I like what I'm seeing, though, out of him here today. He's up 13 on the day. This could be a good rebuilding confidence race for him, especially on the ovals.
I think it's a good thing in some regards that it's not a double points race for him. He's not necessarily looking to fight for the championship given his relative inexperience on the ovals, but he's got some pretty good teammates that will be able to get him educated, but even in the Rookie of the Year championship, where I guess he is fighting his teammate David Rodriguez, so that's going to be a hard one to really crack, but you're not going to lose too much when all things are said and done. Looking forward again, here's Anzaldo, Rodriguez, and Richie Hearn, as looks like Will Gibson back down onto pit lane. I wonder if he did indeed actually speed, because I wouldn't expect him to be coming back down. And yeah, he did get a black flag, so speeding. I thought he had slowed it down in time, but it might not have been on the entry. It could have been on the exit as well. That's what bit Valiocas last time out.
It was indeed, and it's a deceptively long pit lane exit here, so that might have been it. He may have sped up before he thought he could have, and that is one that I know I have certainly fallen afoul of before.
On board with Guyon in the 08, with Lanini and Herricks squabbling over 12th in front. Herricks down low on the tunnel turn, on the entry there. Go back out of that one. And it's been a lonely day so far for the man that leads, but here he comes down onto pit row. That was almost perfect timing. Does lock up, but I think gets it slowed down just about in time. Now, will anyone else follow him in? No, because he's been out there punching a hole in the air all for himself. And so Chris Fowler becomes the first of the leading cars to come down onto pit lane.
And what's going to be interesting here is to see in the rest of these packs who has been able to save a little bit more. And Zaldo just calling out that he is going to have to come down. I haven't heard a call yet from Rodriguez or Richie Hearn, so both of them may be able to eke this out a lap or two longer. And the longer you are able to eke out a fuel stint, the better you are going to be position-wise.
It was 11.5-second pit stop for Chris Fowler, which is a bit longer than I think we've usually seen, so I wonder if maybe there were some ties. As there goes Fowler around the track, but here comes Anzaldo locking up, and even more aggressive is David Rodriguez. I think they've just about gotten away with that, but you can see no pit limiter. They're trying to figure out how fast they can really go.
Yeah, and it's very, very tricky to regulate that with your right foot. You're kind of constantly pressing and depressing the throttle there, back and forth and back and forth. I'm watching them coming into pit lane, and it does indeed look like they are taking tires. So that 11-second pit stop, everybody opting for the fresh set of boots here.
Just two is what I would think, as Anzaldo's actually going to lose the race off of pit road. Jim Herrick behind Michael O'Brien, but nice and tidy. It does look as though they have not gotten a pit road penalty, which would be the crucial thing at this point in the race. You can see the separation already between them. The gap has come down very slightly. There's Fowler. 2.5 back is David Rodriguez, who does have some momentum still yet to be built up in that car, but a little bit closer and in eyesight of the man that he is fighting with. More pit stops underway. There you can see a group coming down, led by Razmas, with Gallows, Wenzen, Lanini, Malone, and a bunch of other cars coming down to pit. 5 cars yet to box. Richie Hearn, Alex Guyon, Scott Holmes, Mike Rigney, and Bobby Mikes.
And this is very impressive out of Richie Hearn. Remember, he was in that leading trio. Let's see if he decides to come down this lap. But the more he is able to eke this out, the more impressed I am by him, Arjuna. It's a very, very heads-up play from Richie. It may be able to gain him just a little bit of time. Is he going to come down here? Yes, he is.
Now again, remember, fuel window about 30 to 33 laps. Richie Hearn has done 37, but we did have the 3 laps of caution, so hard to really get a gauge on that. But at best, let's say it's 34 at the maximum. He can one stop from here pretty comfortably. The others, they can do it, but I think they have more fuel saving to do as compared to this man in the 70. Everyone else will come down to pit. There are a couple of cars who boxed under our caution, the only caution so far that are yet to pit. That includes Chris Reagan, Matt Taylor, Marius Valiocas, Isaac Snyder, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, Adam Young, Ricky Hardin, Brett Accord, Brian Hoffman, and Cristobal Valenzuela. There rolls Richie Hearn. Now, where is he going to come out in comparison to the rest of the field? Behind Rodriguez, but I think alongside with George Anzaldo, who might actually work together here and tow themselves up forward. Interesting to note, Mike Razmas, shortest pit stop of all the cars that boxed in that last cycle.
Yeah, only 9.3 there. And also interesting to note, Richie Hearn did not take tires on that stop, so that could come to his benefit. He did not take tires, Arjuna.
At a 12-second pit stop, I'm a little bit surprised to hear that, to be honest.
Yeah, so am I, but I watched him the entire time. That car did not go up on the jack, so no tires to be taken there on the number 70.
Interesting. Another cookie crumbles in our strategy game here at the Pocono Raceway for our MOZA Racing Pocono 250. We thank you for joining us for round 4 coverage of this 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. Whether you're watching live on RaceSpotTV or rebroadcast on ESTV, it's been a fantastic season so far, and we've still got plenty of entertainment to come. The RSR by Butt Kicker Machines on the outside as Schneider gets a little bit loose and squirrely onto pit road. Comes Luis Gonzalez, Nunez, and the divided by Zero Motorsports crew of Brett Accord and Brian Hoffman, as well as Cristobal Valenzuela in the Backfire Motorsports machine. These cars have done 35 laps so far. Looking pretty good on fuel numbers, I think, for them. They'll definitely have a shorter pit stop at some point in this race.
Yeah, they will indeed, and this is the benefit of coming down on that early stop during the caution. I like that strategy if you were in the back half of the field. It's a heads-up play, and they'll all be able to work together here a little bit. This big pack breaking up the air, being able to be pulled along in the draft.
You don't get a sense of the scale of Pocono until you see it from up above. We're riding on our blimp cameras. Through turn 3 they come. Will they dive left onto pit road? No, they'll stay out apart from one car, which will box. That's Adam Young in that number 12. 2.5 miles, a gargantuan facility, and of course home to some pretty horrific crashes in recent memory. And you don't have to go too far back to think about what happened to Robert Wickens. Even the following year, we saw a big 3-wide calamity into turn 2 where somehow all the drivers were able to walk away from that one. But at these speeds, one mistake could spell the end of your race. That's what happened to Luke Daniels. That's what happened to Tyler Graf. 3 retirements. Daniels and Graf, of course, after that lap 1 caution. But as well, Gary Godso has been retired after his incident on pit road. As well, here come the rest of the cars locking up the brakes in front of them. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if at least one car might get a speeding penalty as they'll try and find their box.
And that was Ricky Harden coming in very, very fast onto the lane. I think he managed to just get it slowed down. Looks like all of the drivers here taking tires, opting for that new tire strategy. Waiting around as now your leader's going to cycle back into the lead in the form of Chris Fowler. But, yeah, this definitely starting to play out. Let's see where these drivers cycle themselves back out and around.
You can see the track map, so you can see where all the cars are. There's a whole gaggle coming down the straight right about now. Now, where will this grouping emerge in comparison to them? Taylor, the lead car off of the lane this time by, will be 7 laps to the good on Chris Fowler, his MadWorks Motorsports teammate. Slots out right behind Rodrigo Munoz in the Backfire Motorsports 09. As Ricky Harden and Isaac Snyder squabbling as they run in towards a tunnel turn. Harden in that blue and yellow, trying to keep it hard out of the wall rather than hard in the wall. Got a second screen experience, head on over to Hard in the Wall on Twitch where you can follow along with Ricky Harden's viewpoint. At the front of your field, Chris Fowler now leads by 3.2 seconds. That gap holding fairly consistent as Matt Taylor, oh no, Matt Taylor back down onto pit lane.
Oh, that's got to be a pit lane speeding penalty there for Taylor, the way he is coming back through, and that would have been on pit exit after his stop.
Just trying to accelerate a bit too much and then manages to lock up on the entry to his box. Not going to compromise him too much, but he'll be held for 16 seconds, and after winning 7 days ago in upstate New York, here in the Pocono Mountains, he's going to be fighting just to try and stay on your lead lap. Now, it's about a 30-second pit delta, just above that probably, 39 once you factor in the 16 seconds that you're stationary. He is definitely going a lap down given where he was in that pack. He's rolling now, and indeed we can confirm Matt Taylor, a winner 7 days ago, 1 lap down in 31st now.
That's not going to go well for him as we watch here a little bit of squabbling for second place as there is Taylor coming across your screen right now. As these drivers work their way around. This is the second place battle between Rasmus and Rodriguez. Rasmus able to jump his way up in that pit stop cycle, doing a very, very good job. Richie Hearn loitering there in the background. Remember, Hearn able to go very long on that cycle, and he may be the one in the catbird seat here if he is able to just push all out on these final two stints.
Now that is Richie Hearn, who slid his way through the corner, and if he hadn't taken tires, or hasn't taken tires, I'm very shocked, because the way that he was able to control that car, it did seem to me that he got plenty of rubber still in his machine.
Yeah, certainly, Arjuna, and maybe we may see a situation here where drivers opt to take tires on the second stop and not the first, but again, Richie being dogged a little bit by the fact that that was still a relatively long stop, 11.9 seconds, not what we would expect for a no-tire stop like that.
Still, I know what you saw. I'm not doubting your eyes. I'm just wondering if there's more afoot, is the way that I'll put it right now. Looking at two battles, a battle for second, battle for 13th, as well as looks like Rodrigo Munoz, Scott Holmes, Chris Reagan, Jim Herrick, and Isaac Schneider all having their own little squabble. It's Schneider and Harden for 70th and 18th position with the 40 sim racing car of Jim Herrick just in front of them. Great view backwards as they come down onto the start-finish line. George Anzaldo has just been passed by Michael O'Brien just behind the group that we're watching in that battle for second. So Michael O'Brien on the charge.
Yeah, he certainly is, but he's got about 3 seconds to try to make up to the back of David Rodriguez here, and so that's going to be a good reason for him to want to get a push on, get himself up into that leading group. Runs very wide, though, coming up out of the tunnel turn, and that's going to allow a little bit of opportunity here for Forsyth and Anzaldo to fight back.
Forsyth will look down low in the blue and white. O'Brien loses one. Will he lose two? No, he'll just about hold on. That's the 5 of Will Gibson. Remember, he's a lap down. He's just trying to be able to close up to Matt Taylor so he can fight with a car that at least he's fighting for position with. They got to be careful. You don't want to impact that fight for second.
No, you really don't, and I have to say it does look like they are impacting it ever so slightly as they are losing time to the leader, Chris Fowler. The gap now up to about 4.7 seconds.
Yep, no, agreed. It's almost 5 at this point in time. Now, you're allowed to fight to stay on the lead lap, but now that the leader's in front, I would wonder if maybe these drivers are feeling a little bit aggravated. Think back to our Lionheart IndyCar Series opener at the Homestead Miami Speedway, where Alexander Van der Sant, as he tried to hunt down Phil Kraus for the victory there, ran across, I believe it was Alex Guyon, who was not one but not even two, I think it was 3 laps down, and held him up a bunch, and Van der Sant was not thrilled at that. It does look as though Will Gibson has been able to clear himself up, though, as Michael O'Brien now does get passed by Craig Forsyth.
Yes, he does, and George Anzaldo looking like he's been able to build a little bit of a gap back up there and able to close down just a little bit on the back of this pack that they are trying to close into. So what they really want to do is try to play a little bit of leapfrog with each other here. Play one and then the other. Just get those passes done, lift off down the straights a little bit, and try to keep themselves going as far forward as possible to try to make this about an 8-car battle for the final podium positions.
That's what they want to see, and that's what Chris Fowler wants to see. There we get a great look as we run ourselves down the start-finish line. The gaps further back in the pack. It's as simple as that. Here's Rodrigo Munoz trying to look down low on Scott Holmes. Scott Holmes, well, Mike Rasmussen is up 15 positions a second. Let's give him a big shout-out for that charge through the field. Scott Holmes, plus 18 after an end-of-line penalty to start this race off.
Just goes to show you, Arjuna, when you are on a charge and you are in the groove here at Pocono, you can absolutely be flying your way up through the field. So massive kudos there to Scott Holmes.
Of course, your big losers, Matt Taylor with that penalty. He's down 20 positions, but there's your pole sitter, David Sirwa. Looks like for the 5th time in 6 years, pole position, not the best place to start. I mentioned it in the pre-race show as well. In 4 different years, in the 5 visits prior to this one at Pocono, our winner has come outside of the top 10, 11th in Season 2, 12th in Season 3, 27th in Season 4, and then 13th last year where Mark Cohn took victory by 7 thousandths of a second. At least right now, we are looking like we are definitely on course for the largest winning margin in Pocono history here, and not by a small amount, a large amount.
A very, very large medal, though I do have to say, Rasmus has been able to close down a little bit over the last couple of laps, closing that gap by about a half a second here on Chris Fowler, now that he's been able to clear some of that lap traffic in the form of Taylor and those around him. Still going to have some more lap traffic up ahead of him for the Cord, Brian Hotham, Marius Valiokas drivers that he's going to have to clear. That's Fowler that he's going to have to clear. Then Rasmus is just going to have to clear by Gibson.
I knew where you were going with that, don't worry. It happens to the best of us. Live broadcasting is hard. People don't realize that until they actually do it. Rodrigo Munoz and Scott Holmes still resume the hostilities as we just looked away from George Anzaldo and Craig Forsyth. Anzaldo holds the inside line down on the blue and white 53 machine. And now here comes Forsyth, back again. Love the fighting, but they're now starting to slip even further back from Richie Hearn, David Rodriguez, and Mike Rasmus. You can't really slingshot as much as you can at Indianapolis, for example, DJ, but surely to some degree they've got to work together here.
Yeah, you've got to play nicely with others here to try to get yourself forward. Fighting like this is not going to help, and it really requires a selfless mentality about it, backing off down the long front straightaway to get it by. But Forsyth there, you can see no intention of backing off as he takes an immediate cut down to the inside and into the tunnel turn.
We are halfway through this race. Working lap 52 of 100 in our MOZA Racing Pocono 250 presented by Extreme Scoring. It's our longest race of the year so far. Won't have double points, though. Again, Triple Crown races, only Indianapolis as well as our season finale have that, but those also are 250 miles in length. Next week, 141 odd miles at Phillip Island, or rather 2 weeks from now. And then a couple of weeks after that, Brands Hatch sees 125 miles there, then 150 at the Nashville Super Speedway, 250 at Indianapolis, 125 at the Hungaroring. We vary our race distances, but all looking for about that same race time. Will give the drivers that mental pressure of fighting wheel to wheel, and Forsyth and Anzaldo continue to squabble amongst themselves. O'Brien gets a great view of the action. It does mean, guess who's closing? Hugo Gallus, last time around, 0.2 a second. 0.2 a lap.
Yeah. Gallant's going to be very, very happy to that. I think as is, frankly, Michael O'Brien, who's going to be happy to just be able to sit back behind here and gain some of that slipstream, do a really good job of sipping that fuel. Remember, we talked about some of these drivers that came in here a little bit earlier on that last pit cycle. O'Brien coming in on lap 35. That is on the earlier side. If he's able to extend this later stint out, that means he won't have to save in the final stint, and he'll be able to be in full push mode.
Gap at the front. 3.6 seconds. Will Gibson maybe actually helping out Mike Rasmus at this juncture. Do remember, Will Gibson not involved in any sort of issue or incident, just pit road penalty for him, speeding on pit lane. That's what dropped him one lap down. Maybe, just maybe, he is giving a toe to Mike Rasmus that they're both making full advantage of right now.
Very well could be as they cross over the line here. Another 1/10 of a second taken out by Mike Rasmus. Gibson clearly has some space, and Rasmus here able to push nice and hard to be able to do that. It also looks like David Rodriguez pretty content to stay behind as they have stopped squabbling with each other, and they're content to just run in line.
One caution so far. Knocking on wood, we are looking at by far the cleanest Retro Series race here in the Pocono Mountains. However, so far, it's been a blowout. Chris Fowler leads by 3.5 seconds in the MOZA Racing Pocono 250, presented by Extreme Scoring. You're watching RaceSpotTV and ESTV for round 4 coverage of the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. Back after this race, coming up next, right after this.
the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage here of the first Triple Crown race in our 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. We're live in the Pocono Mountains for the MOZA Racing Pocono 250, presented by Extreme Scoring. Hello everyone, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, as always joined by the delightful DJ Clark for what has been a fascinating race so far. We've still got strategy games left to play, but DJ, I don't think on anyone's bingo card would have been just one caution so far in this race.
It certainly wasn't on mine, Arjuna. I am utterly surprised by it, and I am utterly surprised at the gap that Chris Fowler has been able to pull on this field. Although it has to be said, it looks like that gap is starting to come down a little bit. For the first time in a long time, it is under 3 seconds.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a look at the peloton as it is, second, third, and fourth. Now, during the end of the pit stop cycle, that gap was just about touching 5 seconds. They've cut it in half, now trying to duck it below 2. You can always see when that car in front of you gets closer and closer, the tension builds, but the excitement ratchets up as well. Target acquired, full send from here on forward. David Sirois put it on pole position and has at least managed to recover his way up to 15th. At one point outside of the top 20. But clearly, pole position, having never won this race since the inaugural season of the Lionheart Retro Series, don't want to be on pole. Clearly, it's cursed.
Yeah, very much so. As he finds himself mired back in the field there, you can watch him trying to take on Scott Holmes and Rodrigo Munoz there, who are in a little bit of a battle of their own. Cody Wenson maybe having a look now to the outside, using that momentum. Ooh, Wenson getting a little bit squirrely, though, on the outside.
Yeah, plenty of action. It's not like we're lacking for it. However, we said this before, the more fighting, the more time you lose. It's as simple as that. The equation goes both ways, and we were talking about the possibility for a caution to change the game, and voila, ask no more. We are just on the edge of the fuel window. The day for Scott Holmes will come to an end. However, the big story point from here is, can anyone gamble on the fuel and survive to the checkered flag? A look at the RaceSpotTV replay. It might be the Backfire Motorsports car that comes up the track as they run in towards turn number 1. And indeed, there it is. One car coming down low, one car going up high, and 2 doesn't go into 1.
No, it does not. Just a little bit of a miscommunication there in between the two. Both of them fighting for the same space out on the track. And yeah, you can see it here as we bring it down to slow motion. Both of them just calming into each other there.
Well, I'm going to walk back what I just said. I don't think that Munoz does much wrong. Here's a look on Cody Wenson's perspective, and look at the line that Scott Holmes is taking relative to the seam in the track. So the Backfire Motorsports car pretty steady, I'd say, and maybe Scott Holmes is expecting Munoz to turn in a little bit earlier, but unfortunately he didn't, and Munoz holds his line at the end of the day.
Yeah, indeed he does, and that sends him out into the wall, unfortunately. So, all right, Arjuna, now as you said, this now becomes a fuel strategy race. Can anybody eke these last couple of laps out to the end, or are we going to have to see some splash and dashes before the end?
So remember in that first cycle of the race, 37 was the number that Richie Hearn was able to hit after that one caution that we have. And I do think cautions breed cautions. We're not out of the woods just yet. But hypothetically, Richie Hearn has shown that you can come down to pit road and just about make it to the end. We will see everyone into pit lane, other than the cars that are already one lap down. Matt Taylor, the Candyman, as well, staying out there. But everyone else will be filtering their way in. You've got to execute on pit lane. Maybe, DJ, it's worth not taking tires this time by.
Well, if we were right about Richie Hearn not taking tires, he's shown that it can work for you. So let's see what everybody opts to do here as everybody coming down in. A couple of drivers going up on the jacks. I'm not seeing some of your leaders, though. Looks like Gonzalo's certainly not. Drivers already starting to work their way out. It looks like no tires the way to go.
Chris Fowler will win the race off of pit road. Razmas beaten out by David Rodriguez there. A couple more fights going on as they all cycle their way off the lane. Crucially, there is your still race leader, Chris Fowler, who will be gutted. All the work that he had done, DJ, to build up a monumental advantage has fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, it certainly has, but I have to say that gap was coming down more and more every time, so it may just have been a situation where Fowler, where he was going to be in trouble no matter what, so this may have proved a little bit of a blessing to him. He may have a car that handles a little bit better on a fuller tank of fuel than a lighter one.
I also wonder if maybe Fowler was just saving the fuel, right? He was the first to pit in the leading 20 or so, maybe thinking that he could slip backwards just a little bit and get a better margin on fuel while still holding the lead of the race. Plenty of factors to cycle into that. Lights are still on the pace car. We talked about how these are lengthy cautions, and in reality, that helps out these drivers as they try to make it to the end from here. Remember, fuel stint indicated is about 30 to 33, but we have seen drivers go beyond that.
Yeah, we have indeed. Richie Hearn, most in particular, as we mentioned early on, able to make it work for a long period of time, able to stretch that out to about 36 laps, 37, and that was underneath one period of safety car, so that could play to hit their advantage here if they know it is possible.
Here comes Will Gibson down onto the lane. He's still one lap down, was unable to reclaim it as Matt Taylor and Dustin Wardlow have been able to do. Both cars, though, yet to have come down pit lane. And drivers at the back, like you'd expect, DJ, coming down to pit again, top off on fuel.
Yeah, it looks like Hotham and Brett Accord, both two of those drivers that are going to be coming in. That's a smart strategy for them. Just try to get that last little couple of drops of fuel to make it to the end if you can.
Bit shocked it's not a few more, to be completely honest. If you're Cristobal Valenzuela, Bobby Mikes, you're all the way back in the pack. Even Isaac Snyder, for example, you don't have much to lose, including, I'll say, David Siwa, who's now back in 19th spot, our pole sitter.
Yeah, I think he's about the cutoff line of when I wouldn't necessarily be thinking about it. But as for everybody else, definitely a good decision to try to come down here. And I'm a little bit skeptical of drivers that haven't come down to get that little bit of extra top off. We've seen that you can get on passed by here. And if this ends up being a fuel strategy race, that could be something that comes back to bite some of those drivers.
So it's Luis Gonzalez Nunez at the front. And like DJ mentioned, cars not pitting. That includes Chris Reagan, Ricky Harden, Adam Young, Mike Rigney, and Marius Valiokis in the 23. So 6 cars at the front who would not have pitted, but they were the final of the drivers that cycled through on the last green flag pit stop cycle. If we go green from here, the likelihood is they're in trouble. They are gambling on the caution to come back out. It's as simple as that. A yellow flag here likely puts themselves back into a prime position to fight for the victory. Another camera that's decided it's so scared it was to dive below the surface of the track. There's a long hold from Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He punches the throttle. We're back racing in the Pocono Mountains. Good start from him. Below, there we go. There's the chaos. Puffs of smoke. They just about survive, fanning themselves out down this long and wide front straight.
Very much so. A little bit of tap on the brakes there as everybody works their way through the first corner. Relatively single file for about the top 10. But from there on back, you see a little bit of that chaos starting to go. Richie Hearn looking like he had a particularly bad start. He is well off the pace there, about 0.6 of a second back from Mike Rasmus.
Adam Young about 0.3 away from Hardin, Reagan, and Nunez. Chris Fowler does want to try and get a hurry on. I think he now knows that in the net race lead, he can't really afford to be too conservative. He's got Rodriguez and Rasmus really haranguing him as through turn 3 they come to complete another lap under the green. 65 done. 35 left to go from here. Nunez still leads, and Zaldo has come down pit lane. I have a feeling that might be for a black flag for jumping the start and making a position up before you're allowed to do so.
Yeah, I think you may be right on that one, Arjuna, as he is stationary in his box. We'll have to keep an eye on how long that penalty lasts, if that is a penalty indeed, as here we go into the tunnel turn here.
Sorry, I'll correct myself. He's got a meatball.
How did he pick that up?
I'm guessing that was the cause of the chaos on the start.
Probably right.
It's elementary, as Sherlock would say. Plenty of fighting, but let's go ahead and pick up what happened on that restart. So Inzaldo's the 6th car in front of O'Brien in the yellow and red. Now, he gets a little loose, doesn't he?
He spun the rear tires. That can happen sometimes if you start this car in first gear and a little bit too happy on that right pedal. It can certainly spin up the tires. Watch it right about there. You can see the car start to get away from him, gets the contact in the back. Not that heavy of an impact into the outside wall, but that's going to be just enough to damage the suspension.
Now watch here. O'Brien's got nowhere to go. No time to react. It's as simple as that. Brett Accord has had an issue, by the way, but we stay green. Where is he? That's the big question. Where's that 51 car? He looks like he's crabbing as well. Not sure how we stay green, but I'm not complaining. I love a good fuel mileage race. Some of these drivers don't enjoy it as much.
No, it certainly adds to the complications and the terror, if you will, when you're behind the seat. Sometimes you just have to be constantly thinking about those numbers and also making sure you're able to keep up with the drivers racing around you. It just adds to the things you have to be thinking about behind the cockpit.
It's not simple, we'll put it that way. Let's now, as we still wait to see when your leaders will come down and pit, let's grab another look at a replay. Brett Accord is working his way down to pit road. It looks like it's by himself that the issue is going to come. Just look how much wheel input he's got. Something is wrong with that car far beyond before where we're looking at it, and he just drifts down low and spins that car as they're fighting for the lead here across the line.
Here they come indeed. That's Ricky Hardin taking a move to the inside of Luis Gonzalez Nunez. And yeah, I agree with you on that problem for Accord, that there clearly was something wrong. You should not be putting that much pedal into the car.
Hardin down low, but Nunez sweeps around the outside to hold that momentum. Camera shaking with the speed of these Lotus 79s. Love that side. Chris Reagan, we talked about him earlier. He's in 4th. Finished 2nd 12 months ago, trying to go one better. Finish on top step of the podium for the first time in his Retro Series career. These cars working towards that magic lap number 30 or so when the pit window opens in terms of the amount of fuel that they've got left in that car. It would also be lap 30 left to go in this race. One stop and they're guaranteed to make it to the end.
Indeed, and I am got to think, though, that these drivers are going to try to eke that out as long as possible, as it is a straight-up drag race now between Adam Young and Luis Gonzalez Nunez going down into Turn 1. Those two not thinking about fuel at all. They just want the lead.
Don't mind it, but you get very close to going lap down when you pit under green here. Surely it would be wiser to maybe just relax a little bit and try and run away like we saw with Chris Fowler in the early stages. Let's have a look at this. Maybe this will explain what happens with Brett Accord. So he's got Bobby Mikes in front of him. Oh, and drifting wide into the wall, and at least he doesn't run down and spin around on pit entry like Gary Godso did, but that's why his car was so left-hand down, and immediately as a result.
And kudos there to Accord for bringing it around the track as much as possible. He wanted to stave off any yellow flag being put out there. That's why he kept going around, so I want to give him some credit on that.
Does Young have it? a little bit further in front as they dive their way into turn 1. Now Nunez all the way up the track through the almost 20 degrees of banking, but into the tunnel turn. We saw side-by-side cause a little bit of chaos here last time at the early points of this race. Young will try and slide his way through. Nunez gets spooked and runs up high. Will give Young the lead, open the door for Ricky Harden to try and make it 3 wide.
And Young actually caught a little bit of that inside rumble strip. That upset the car down to the inside, but he was able to recover absolutely brilliantly. We jump back here and take a look on board with Mike Rigney, who was in the popcorn position to all of the craziness happening in front of him.
He now leads in terms, he stayed out there as well. I got confused with Mike Razmas, there, 0-0 and 68. Should have been a little bit easier. That's confusing them because they are mics, the battle of the mics, if you will. Fowler is still then your net race leader, with Rodriguez, Razmas, Forsyth tucked up behind. I think they're all probably content to bide their time and save some fuel.
I think they are as well, and I think we just heard one of the drivers who has been squabbling the most here, Gonzalez Nunez, is going to be coming down pit lane this time, if I heard that correctly over the radio.
We'll find out in the yellow and white SimRace 24/7 machine. He's looking low, which is good. If you want to pit, you can't be up high. And indeed, here he comes by himself. Going to be difficult for him to build that speed up again without any draft. A little bit worrisome on entry, but I think he's managed to get away with that now as long as he doesn't speed on exit. He'll emerge on track about 32 seconds back. And you look at that, and that's the reason why we wondered why you'd stay out under the caution.
Exactly, but if we were to get another caution, if we are to get another caution here in the closing moments, this could play out to perfection for these drivers. Eke it out as long as you can. But I think the problem is at this point, if we get another caution, that's going to play into the hands of the drivers behind them, like Fowler, Rodriguez, and Rasmus, who are going to be able to, they're going to be able to do that, and they may be able to just eke it out without a stop. We anticipate them being about a lap or two short right now.
No, I was completely forgetting. If we get a caution, those cars going to probably be good to the end with, 27 laps to go, something like that. Never trust a commentator's math, but I think I actually got that one right.
I think you are right on that, Arjuna. Is one of the drivers I have been watching that we focus here is Ricky Harden. Now, Ricky is normally a very, very aggressive driver. Always likes to show his nose, really push forward. He's fantastic to watch, but he has been relatively restrained here on this run, and I think that's because he is watching that fuel gauge as much as possible.
He has won on a similar sort of a track. His only Retro Series victory came at Michigan back in 2020, I guess, if I'm doing it correctly, because that was season 4. 37 starts, 6 top 10s. It looks like Mike Rigney, right Mike this time, is going to come down and pit in that 68 car. But yeah, Ricky Harden, aggressive driver. I always, when I think about Ricky, I think about what happened during the Indianapolis 500 Lionheart IndyCar race last year, where we were covering the qualifying and we were talking about how his Twitch stream is called Hard in the Wall, and guess what he did? Went straight hard into the wall.
Sometimes you don't have to make up things as a commentator. They just present himself to you.
Silver platter. Silver platter. There's Reagan, by the way. You can see separation back 7/10 almost to Fowler in the grouping of cars that is already pitted. I think they're now concerned about the fuel. If you expected a caution, you likely expected it at the start and the restart of the race, right? George and Zaldo getting mixed up there, didn't bring out the caution. The other likelihood is a caution in the final 5 laps of the race that might also, result in the race finishing under yellow for the first time in series history. I think if you're Fowler, you do have to now start to wonder how much more saving Rodriguez in particular is doing behind you.
Yeah, that Iowa race certainly coming into play in the mind of Chris Fowler and the rest of these drivers. Definitely thinking about that is our pole sitter. David Sirois back up into the top 10. That car's starting to come alive a little bit later on in the session.
Give a shout out to the Candyman as well, who was a lap down at the start of the last caution. We'll end up probably a lap down when all things are said and done if we go green from here. He's 32 laps into his stint, but well, he's fighting to put himself back into a good position. Adam Young in that 12 down on pit road this time around. As the gap between 3rd and 4th, the group of cars that are pitted and not pitted now up to 1.4 odd seconds. They're really squabbling hard here.
Yeah, they are. That's Craig Forsyth really making an aggressive move down to the low side there, trying to see what he can do. And remember, most of these drivers did not take tires, which means they're double stinting here. And I think for Forsyth, that means that he may just have a little bit of a better feel. Remember, these cars get looser, not only with lighter fuel, but with more worn-in tires. And so that means he's going to be able to be more aggressive and go down to that low line.
So 77 laps about to be complete as Dustin Wardlow looks inside of Rodriguez. Should be down onto pit lane in a lap, maybe a couple of laps time at most. There you see Hardin, Reagan, even Matt Taylor, I think, coming in this time around for their final stops of the race. It's all now about these next 23-odd laps. 2 cautions so far, by far the cleanest race that we've had at Pocono. Remember, the minimum, the lowest cautions we've had coming into this one is 6. If we had another 4 cautions from here, we're basically running under caution until the end of this race. So I feel somewhat confident in saying that out loud. Although, again, I will knock on my RaceSpotTV issued block of wood that's sitting next to me.
Indeed, Arjuna, as I will do the same for you. Yeah, that's Sirwa up to the lead.
Now, has he saved enough to go full chat? Because Craig Forsyth and Chris Fowler are hanging back. Is Sirwa now going to do what Fowler did in the opening 30 minutes of this race?
Well, he's got a buddy here to do it with in the form of Dustin Wardlow, so they're starting to pull away. They've got 6/10 on the rest of the field. They're clearly banking on no more caution. They want to pull away here.
Incredible. Incredible. Never say never. That's what racing's about. And David Sirwa well and truly epitomizing the racing spirit right now. 7/10 has become a second in the blink of an eye. Remember that we were talking about how crazy it was that Chris Fowler was able to break the draft and run away. I think these cars have got to be careful. Yes, we know Dustin Wardlow is likely going to come to... In fact, there he comes onto pit road this time around. But if Sirwa breaks the draft, he's in a spot where he's not punching the hole in the air. He can do his fuel saving and maybe not lose ground to those behind him.
Exactly, and that is just learning from the others around you. He clearly was keeping an eye out on what Chris Fowler was doing and able to make it work. You've just got to hope here at this point that he is being able to hit his fuel numbers and isn't going to come up short and have to dive in for a splash and dash.
1.4. 1.4 the advantage as Jim Herrick down low on Hugo Gallas in the 84 machine. Oh, I love a fuel mileage race. I still don't know which way this is going to go. Across the line this time by, it will be 20 laps to go here in the first of our Triple Crowns, 50 miles. And can David Sirwa finally convert one of his 4 pole positions into a trip down into HyperX victory lane? That gap, 1.7 seconds.
Well, at this point, he certainly looks like he just might be able to. Big fan out there in the middle of the pack, though, as everybody works their way around. I can tell you one thing, Sirwa is going to be hoping that he is not going to be coming across any yellows here at this point. He does not want that gap to go away.
50-50 on that, right? Because a yellow means that he's good on fuel. A yellow means the gap comes down. Now, I don't know which one you'd prefer more. I'll be completely honest. Sirwa must be supremely confident, I would say that. Maybe, as well, the fact that he was so deep in the pack, and when you're deeper in the pack, there are more checkups that you see, and I think that's why the likes of Jim Herrick are able to go more aggressive this early, DJ, is they're more confident on making it to the end than someone like Chris Fowler is.
I think you're right. Fowler really hasn't had that much experience running in that dirty air, and so he's not sure what numbers he can do, and he still continues to lead that pack. He's not getting a draft from Sirwa up ahead of him, and so that means that he is ostensibly holding second place with no real advantage.
David Rodriguez has got up into third. He's decided that maybe it's time to put the hammer down. He's someone who might well and truly know what his fuel number is. Plenty of 2-wide action in this peloton. 2.2 splits David Sirwa from Chris Fowler, and then a 1.4 second buffer between second and 15th position. It is a hornet's nest back in the pack here. Visual separation. It's humongous between Sirwa and Fowler, but it's come down that last lap around. Now 1.6 in closing.
It is, and I don't know if that was just a little bit of a bobble there from Sirois or if now he's having to worry about his fuel numbers, but Fowler's certainly on it, looking and waiting for that first sector time to clock across to see if it continues to come down.
Fowler got very, very wide on the exit, just carrying as much momentum as possible, but with the momentum, here comes the choo-choo train. Jim Herrick blasts his way up and into second spot, and David Sirois' gap has evaporated in the blink of an eye. It's down to half a second.
Yeah, he is backing off massively. I think he didn't necessarily anticipate getting that. I think he was banking on Dustin Wardlow being around him, but Wardlow obviously still needed to come down to pit lane. So Herrick now coming around him, and hopefully Sirois is going to be able to play. Oh, as we've got a car flipping!
Oh, and that is Craig Forsyth. And in the blink of an eye, things change once again. It is Jim Herrick that leads, but everyone should be good on fuel from here. I think Craig Forsyth, the main loser in that one, but a huge incident. Caution flies for the third time today.
Oh my goodness, Forsyth, at least he made it farther in this race. He was out on about lap 4 last time around, so that'll be some solace there for Craig. Let's take a look at what happened to cause that horrendous shunt.
So it's O'Brien in front of him. Fowler's going very, very slow, and that's one of the backfiring motorsports cars, I think. Maybe Cristobal Valenzuela, who comes up very slightly and sets off the chain reaction. Maybe let's have a look on board with this man, Chris Lanini, who went up a great view of this action in that graphics LC number 92. So Valenzuela's in the middle. Fowler, oh yeah, there you go. There you go, riding the wall was Forsyth for a second, but things change very, very quickly.
Yeah, and I've got to put the blame on that on Valenzuela. It looked like he moved over while Forsyth was alongside him, so absolutely no fault of Craig's there, but he was the unfortunate passenger.
So let's look rearwards here from Chris Fowler, because you can see the amount of momentum that O'Brien as well as Valenzuela has, and that's a good shot.
Yeah, it is indeed. Really gives you a sense of just what that checkup was and what that did to the rest of the field. But all right, Arjuna, we reset here. We think this should make everybody good to go on fuel. Does this mean the gloves come off and it is time to duke this out to the end?
You know, 2 times today, at least 2 times, we've thought about the realistic possibility of not getting a photo finish here at Pocono, which seems somewhat sacrilegious to say. Average finish half a tenth of a second. I think all thoughts of that are out the window now. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. With nobody having to really worry about fuel numbers here at this point, this is going to be an all-out charge to the end.
Michael O'Brien, I think, might have actually... No, never mind. Got confused there for a second. I was trying to find Matt Taylor instead of Michael O'Brien. Matt Taylor down in 26, but other than that, good day for the Mad Works Motorsports crew as they look to extend their gap in our HyperX Team Championship. No one coming down. Will be 14 to go when we cycle back around to get back underway. Would mean it was a 37-lap run. What's the magic number we talked about last time we came down pit road?
It was about 37 laps, Arjuna.
I think some of these guys are very good in terms of they've saved enough fuel and they can charge from here. I don't know if some others, for example David Sirois, is in that same situation. As Mark Cohn put it, this is fuel mileage chicken right now.
It is indeed, and the one thing that I will say with all of this is, remember, Richie Hearn was able to make it 37 laps with 1 caution on some mega fuel savings. Oh, that was a car randomly up into the wall there.
So Brian, I think.
No, it was Fowler.
Interesting. We'll grab a look at in a couple of moments' time. The lights are still on the pace car, so we've got plenty of time now to take a look. But I wonder what happened there. Was it a lapse in concentration, or was it a little bit more suspicious? I don't think it's suspicious, let's be honest, because it's a teammate right behind him. But we'll have a look, and we'll figure this one out. A beauty of virtual broadcasting. I mentioned having infinite camera angles, but also infinite opportunities to go and take a look at what happened. Here's a look at this. So he's running high. And he's going to just drift into the wall, isn't he? Yeah. You can see very... Oh, well. I don't know. I'm honestly a bit confused. Perplexed.
Yeah, I have no... that honestly looks like he may have been checking something else out and just accidentally goosed it a little bit.
Where does the phrase "goosed it" come from? I've always wondered stuff. I'm curious. You know, the more I get into this broadcasting thing, the more I wonder where some of these phrases come from. Like, for example, kitty litter, which has somehow become stuck in my vocabulary when someone goes off into the gravel trap.
I'm the same way. I can just tell you that I know my father had used that for years, and it was passed down father to son.
Alexander Van der Sant says, don't text and drive, kids. It could be possible that he was trying to send a text message to someone. I'm not saying on his phone, but on Discord or you know, equivalent. Could also be that if he's racing on a triple monitor setup or something and he was looking and talking to his family, for example. He was looking around and didn't realize. 14 to go. It'll be 13 to go when we get back underway. I think we're definitely golden on fuel. I think everyone's likely golden on fuel.
Yeah, I think you're right here, Arjuna. Is before that happened, remember I was saying that Richie Hearn was able to make 37 laps work on one caution with a little bit of fuel saving there. I think with 2 caution periods, this should make everybody good if you did just a hair of fuel saving over the course of the race.
Okay. Predict the margin of victory. I'm not going to make you predict a winner, but margin of victory. Still difficult.
I think at this point we are looking at most maybe a 10th and a half.
Okay, so it would be another record for the Lionheart Retro Series. 10th and a half would be the largest margin of victory, but still going to be counted up there as one of the closer finishes that we've seen so far in the 6 years of Lionheart Retro Series competition. Jim Herrick, plus 13 from where he started. He's in control of the field for the first time in 2022. He punches the throttle. We're racing with 13 to go in the MOZA Racing Pocono 250, presented by Extreme Scoring. That gap's not going to last for long. The question is, who's the one to fight with him? Is it David Sirois? Is it David Rodriguez? Or the MadWorks Motorsports duo going to be the one to fight for the lead?
Little bit of a lower line there for Rodriguez. I think he may have clipped that inside rumble strip and cost himself a little bit of time. And indeed, he has lost some time to Sirois, and Fowler looking all over his gearbox now.
And here comes Lanini to the inside. Pole position in Season 2. Only 2 laps led, but he's almost 3 abreast as they dive their way through the tunnel turn. They all survive. They all hang on to it. But what do we say? Cautions breed cautions. Is the chaos going to bring out another stop-and-start end to this race? There's Fowler, who's got David Rodriguez up high. He's got David Sirois down low. Bit of separation between 4th and 5th.
Yes, it is. Thorough blanket over those top 4, though. Whoa! Swap it around in positions, and we go Noah's Ark into the corner. 3 wide!
Fowler's trying to get back to the point, and down low he'll control his destiny. Sirois gets a little bit squirrely, has to back out of the throttle, which might have exacerbated that oversteering tendency of his car. He holds on to 3rd as there we go. Cautions breed cautions. And it's the number 19 of Chris Reagan that's off into the grass. And, well, that's a pretty used Lotus 79.
I think also Luis Gonzalez Nunez looking in a pretty used Lotus there as well, in that yellow number 14, so at least a 2-car incident coming through turn 1.
That car's crabbing as well. Let's take a look at it. Another 3-wide situation. Gonzalez Nunez is alongside with Reagan. Oh, I think we're going to have a look maybe from Rigny's perspective as to what happened there. But at first glance, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Not sure if I could put the blame on either of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure as well, but let's double check this here from Rigny's perspective as they come down through the corner. That was a pretty wide drift there for Luis Gonzalez Nunez, but it looked like he did be able to catch it just a bit before it started to drift up on him all the way.
What do we know though, DJ? If we weren't good on fuel before, we're good on fuel now.
Indeed, everybody will be good to go, and it'll just make this run to the line even more fast and even more furious.
4th caution, right? I think it's the 4th.
I believe that's correct, yeah.
We're getting up to that 6 that you predicted.
Let's hope it doesn't get that high at this point, because I would hate to see it close under yellow after this really intriguing race.
So the yellows take about, what, 3 laps here? I think 3 is what I've been counting.
Yeah, I believe that's about right. So we should get restarted to go with 8 laps to go and an 8-lap shootout to the end.
So the magic number is 3 or 4. I'm not 100% sure which side of the coin it needs to flip-flop, but there's the number. If you want to know who should be leading out of turn 3 on lap 4 to go, if a caution comes out then, it would likely end the race. Pace car driver has been a little bit busier than we would have hoped after the long green flag run that we had in the middle of the race, but again, could be anyone's game. If Jim Herrick wins this one, it will be the 5th time in 6 years the winner has started outside of the top 10. If David Sirah wins this one, it will be only the 2nd time since season 1 that a pole sitter has managed to convert to a trip to HyperX victory lane. I think we're looking at 8 to go when we get back underway. Is Fowler in the lead of this race? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think Fowler's back in the lead of this one. Yes, he was leading. Because he led into out of turn 1 when the caution came out. Sorry, got myself confused.
Yes, he was. And the one thing that I was going to mention that's a little bit concerning here, I think, for our pole sitter David Sirah, is he did look a little bit hesitant coming through the corners. He looked like he was getting a little bit swamped, not really making the aggressive moves that I would expect here with 15 to go. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that number 99 to see if he's able to maybe get back into it, maybe needs a couple of laps to build that rhythm. We often talk about this Lotus 79 being a bit of a rhythm car. The other driver to watch out for, that's number 10 there, David Rodriguez. Right behind him. He doesn't have to be worrying about the fuel saving like he did in Iowa, but he may be on full chat here.
It's not the first time that you've noted the hesitancy and the cautious approach from David Sirah in this race. But if there's any time to turn the wick up to, go maximum attack, maximum afterburners, surely it's now. Surely at this point, you're trying to go forward.
Indeed. The only thing is that if you just don't have complete confidence in the car, it could certainly come back to bite you. And David's such an experienced driver. I'm surprised that he wasn't as aggressive as he is, because I have seen him do some truly masterful things on the road course side of things.
So should be getting the lights off on the pace car this time by. And we'll have a look. Yep, there they go. Lights are off. 8 to go when we get back underway. We've had it all. We've had strategy, we've had green flag pit stops, and we're setting up for a photo finish. Triple Crown races are great. How does Pocono differ, though, in your opinion, DJ, to Indianapolis and Auto Club? They're both high speed, or all 3 are high speed tracks, but they all have their different challenges, don't they?
Well, Auto Club is much more of what you'd think of as a traditional super speedway. You flat out pinned the entire time. It's all about using the momentum in the draft around. Indianapolis is... it's hard to describe in the way that you have to approach it, because each of the 4 corners come at you completely differently, and there it's really a matter of timing. It's a matter of timing the draft and timing when you're going to be able to make that move, because you really don't want to be entering those corners too wide. You want to make the pass before you get to the corner. Pocono, because of the 3 different corners on the track, to use the cliche that you often hear thrown around, it drives like a road course, because each corner is different and you have to drive each corner differently. And so it presents a whole different challenge to you.
If you want to know how close finishes have been over the course of Retro Series competition, not just at Pocono, the 24th closest finish, 9/100ths of a second. What will we see here today? The closest, 2000s. Ryan Otis victorious in Season 3 at the Michigan International Speedway. 8 to go. 8 laps to decide who wins your MOZA Racing Pocono 250 presented by Extreme Scoring. Your first Triple Crown race of 2022 in the Lionheart Retro Series. Will Chris Fowler be cursed, or will he win for the 2nd time in 2022? We're about to find out. Green flag back out.
Indeed, as that's a good jump there for Fowler, able to build up a gap of about 0.3 of a second. A little bit of squabbling there behind, but Fowler doing exactly what he wants to do and what he did at the beginning of the race, diving down to the inside there, trying to break the draft back to Herrick.
Adam Frazier's gone off, but we stay green. No, we don't. There's the yellow. We didn't even get down into turn number 2. So Adam Frazier in the 88 machine, the reason for this caution, but I don't doubt that it was somewhat assisted. Looking now at 4 to go, 5 to go. What is it?
I think it'll be 4 or 5. I'm not entirely sure.
Let's take a look at the RaceSpotTV replay and see if we can pick out what happened to that 88 machine. So there's the snake forming at the front. There's Frazier down low. Clips the curb, washes up the track, and then Isaac Snyder gives him a bump of assistance down low through some of those alternate configurations that this Pocono Raceway has. Let's get a good look on board with Isaac Snyder.
Yeah, and this just a little bit unfortunate there for Isaac. You can see that car sliding in front of him. He just didn't really anticipate there that that car was going to be slowing down like that. Really nowhere for the number 13 to go.
Yeah, but you will note that there is now... my yellow pen is not working, so that's not ideal. That's suboptimal, but there is damage to the right front of Isaac Snyder's car, so might be hurting him to the end of this race. Slow it down again, set it up for a photo finish.
Indeed, we just got to stay clean and green through these final parts here to see if this can set it up. Cautions breeding cautions as they do.
Oh, God, I've just forgotten what you said, but that rhymes quite nicely. Clean leads to green, hopefully.
Yeah, well, we got to hope that it does here because I want to see a photo finish again as we are accustomed to seeing here at Pocono.
So, Fowler from Herrick, from Sirwa, from Rodriguez, Valenzuela, the top 5. O'Brien 6th, with Razmas, Lanini, Guyon and Schneider through the top 10. Left side of the screen now, see your movers and shakers as we cycle around under caution again. A big day for Valenzuela. We talked about his rather disappointing qualifying compared to Munoz and Gallus, his Backfire Motorsports teammates, who both started up inside of the top 10. Gallus was up there in 4th position at the start of this race, but he's done a great job to work his way up into 5th, 22 positions gained. Isaac Snyder had no qualifying lap time for him. He's worked his way up into 10th plus 21. Adam Young plus 17. Often seems as though if you just stay out of trouble, DJ, you'll put yourself in a good position.
Well, that's a little bit what I was talking about earlier on, Arjuna, is just kind of relaxing yourself into this race. If you're able to stay out of that trouble, you can get yourself up forward in these big super speedway races. It's a fantastic strategy to take, and it's frankly reminiscent of one of the great drivers who was just starting an IndyCar about the time of this car, of the Rick Mears. That was always his strategy at the 500. You very rarely would see Rick be very aggressive early on in the race. Instead, he'd just wait back, tune the car a little bit more, and wait for the race to come to him.
So it'll be 4 to go when we get back underway, which basically confirms if we get a caution, it ends the race. It's as simple as that. So it will be 4 laps to survive, or in other words, 10 miles. A 250-mile race will come down to the final 10. Been a good day so far for some drivers, been a tough day for others. Looking forward to seeing how this one plays out here. Again, no double points in this first of our Triple Crown. That is something to consider. Double points at Indianapolis midway through June. Double points at our season finale, where if it's anything like last year, the race for the championship might come down not just to the checkered flag, but to the moments after when mental math is being done to figure out who ultimately reigns supreme in your 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. Lights off on the pace car. We're racing next time by. Fuel not a concern for anyone. I'm intrigued to see some weaving going on. Drivers building up some temperature into their tires.
Yeah, a little bit worried, and the temperature has really fallen over the course of this race, like we kind of suspected it might, Arjuna. It's down to about 87 degrees Fahrenheit right now, but that high humidity still out there, 77%. That is eked up just a little bit. So certainly some cooler conditions, and drivers, that's why they're weaving a little bit, trying to get those temperatures up into that optimal range.
Humidity has gone up a couple of degrees, couple of percentage points. It was 75, I think, when we first looked, but you can see 510 in our virtual Pocono Mountains in the middle of the year, basically. So, not that close to sunset, but edging closer and closer. I talked to you about the margin of victory. I'm going to ask you for a prediction here, though, DJ. Who comes out on top? I asked the same to our YouTube chat just a few moments ago.
I think at this point, with the jump that we saw off of that last restart, it has got to favor our current leader, Chris Fowler. I think he is going to be able to hold this out, but as my luck has been going recently, I could have just completely jinxed him.
36% of our YouTube community agrees with you, so it's not going to be all on you. We'll blame everyone else as well. It's split then equally between Herrick, Siwa, and anyone else. 4 to go, as we'll cross the line, get the green back out in this MOZA Racing Pocono 250 presented by Extreme Scoring. The first of our Triple Crowns. Might see another photo finish. Throttles picked up, green flag back out, and the snake builds once more. Fowler gets a good jump, but not as good as it was on that last restart. Only a quarter of a second clear as all the field builds up the speed, builds up the momentum. They stay single file for now.
Yes, they do. Coming
through.
And
Fowler spins! The leader has gone around, and will the race end like that? Has Jim Herrick played some 4D chess to be gifted his first Lionheart Retro Series career victory? You couldn't script it. Chris Fowler from the lead of the race has looped it, and that car looks toasted.
I apologize to Chris Fowler for thoroughly jinxing him there. My goodness, Arjuna, you could not have written that as you said.
Let's take a look at what happens. Now, was it cold tires for him? Remember, cars behind were warming up the rubber, and it gets loose, and from there, that's all she wrote. Fowler could do nothing. Up into the wall he went, and I think there was, oh my word. That is Mike Rigney that came onto the scene of the accident and decided to cause a little bit more chaos. Let's ride on board with him.
And this is Rigney there. You can see fighting on that high line. Oh, he got tagged from behind.
Yeah, and then that's why there was that subsequent bit of contact. We'll grab one more look at this from up above, focusing a little bit further back. The other car that got mixed up was Adam Frazier, I believe. So it's the 43, of Danny Roberts, and, well, there's not much that any of those other cars could do in that situation. My, oh my, this is a script worthy of an Oscar. Jim Herrick trying to catch back up to the pace car. I think we're confirmed. I think this is race done.
I think it is as well. Pace car exiting off of turn 3 right now. We anticipate we've been seeing 2 to 3 laps of caution. This is it.
Incredible. Oh my days. The first time we finish under caution here at Pocono. Lights don't come off on the pace car. That's it. Race will be official. Jim Herrick will become a Lionheart Retro Series winner in what is just his 4th career start. No top 10s before this. An average finish of 27th. Right place, right time. And now a Lionheart Retro Series winner.
Sometimes that's all you need to do. Remember that absolute streak up through the field that we saw Jim go on before our 3rd or 4th caution, and just positioning himself into the right area. The number 40 taking a deserved trip to victory lane here. I'm almost speechless, Arjuna. This is incredible.
Best finish came in our season opener. 21st position. Unbelievable scenes here. We slow things down. For the first time, don't break out your cameras for the photo finish. Break them out for a first time Lionheart Retro Series winner. Incredible. Incredible. I'm still a bit stunned, a little bit lost for words. Chris Fowler's car says he's cursed on the side. A couple of weeks ago, we thought he had broken the streak, managing to work his way into HyperX victory lane at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. However, today, well and truly cursed in that number 20.
Indeed, just a little bit of cool tires there coming back to bite him. A little bit too much speed through the corner and the tires just losing grip. Remember, not a lot of the drivers on their last pit stop opted to take a fresh set of boots, and that clearly may be coming back to bite him a little bit. Lack of grip and lack of tire temperature.
It's a good point. I forgot, what a big changer that really might be if this season we're looking at, even on these, or especially, I guess, in these longer races, the thoughts of having tire changes, bi-supply tires designed to do a full race distance, but if now that is not holding as true as it was before, strategy games will be something to watch out for, especially when we head to Indianapolis on June the 30th, but especially in our season finale at the Auto Club Speedway on December 15th, when it will all be on the line, one final blast with double points on the line to accumulate some good championship points. It's going to be a busy week here at Pocono for the Lionheart Racing Series. This coming Monday, the Lionheart Speedway Series gets underway for their first Triple Crown of the season. Again here at Pocono, again at the legacy configuration of the Pocono Speedway for your Graphics Esports Pocono 300, so it will be 300 miles, but next Saturday, the 16th of April, it will be a special presentation on RaceSpotTV of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, the Butt Kicker Pocono 500, presented by Next Level Racing. If what we've seen today is any indication, you do not want to miss any of the racing up here on the corner of Long Pond and Andretti Road. The tricky triangle has proven to be tricky for some. Started off with just a solitary caution in the opening 65 laps of the race. A bit stop and start since then, but one man has risen through it all. Charging through the field with a whole heap of steam was the 40 of Jim Herrick. His fourth Lionheart career start in this retro series. Never finished inside of the top 20, but his first finish inside of the top 10 comes as he stands atop of the podium. Jim Herrick will win the MOZA Racing Pocono 250 presented by Extreme Scoring. Our first Triple Crown goes to Jim Herrick. Will he be the first to win all three? Only one place to see all that action, here live on RaceSpotTV and on ESTV as well. Fascinating day, DJ. And we love first-time winners. I can't wait for the emotions in HyperX Victory Lane.
Neither can I. A first-time win for Jim Herrick, Sirwa, and Rodriguez as well, putting in some fantastic performances over the course of the day. This is going to be a great spat of interviews that we have.
David Rodriguez will be a little bit disappointed, I think. He's always sets high bars for himself. Leads the rookie standings, yes, but not been an easy season by any means for David Rodriguez. For David Sirwa, a fourth pole position, but another race where he's been unable to convert into a race-winning performance. Will we see some donuts? He should have plenty of fuel. Will that number 40 car? We'll wait and we'll celebrate with him. As for the first time, Jim Herrick stand atop of the field, a winner. And a deserved winner as well with the charge that we saw from him. And again, DJ, it was a race where drivers struggled. We talked about dirty air maybe being a factor, no in-car tools, only 2 hands, 2 feet. And ultimately, fuel mileage as well, I think played a big helping hand there. How did you respond when the car was maybe not being run at 100%?
Yeah, exactly. And Herrick there just able to respond when it matters. Again, I hearken back to that charge we saw him make during that green flag pace when everybody was kind of watching their fuel a little bit. Herrick took a gamble to go for broke there, to absolutely push the car to its limits and see what he could get out of it, and it paid off with some victory donuts here for the number 40.
Oh, the smell of rubber is a sweet taste of success. Here's a look at your Sim Race 24/7 race results after 100 laps. It's the 40 sim racing car that comes out on top to back up the race-winning performance that we saw in the Lionheart Speedway Series for Craig Forsyth. David Sirwa on the second step of the podium, with David Rodriguez rounding out the top three. Cristobal Valenzuela, what a day for him. 23 positions gained, our hard charger, and backing up the performance that Backfire Motorsports have been showing us week in, week out in this series. Michael O'Brien in fifth, the best of the MadWorks Motorsports cars, and another day that was looking great for them, not ending with the best of results. Mike Rasmas, after starting down in 17th, works his way up into 6th. Race 1 winner Chris Lanini rounds himself into 7th, with Alex Guyon and Isaac Snyder 18 and 22 positions gained for them to nestle themselves inside of the top 10. Trevor Malone in his 34 completes those top 10 finishers. Rodrigo Munoz and Hugo Gallas for the Backfire Motorsports team finish 11th and 12th, while Robert Mikes is in 13th. Ricky Hardin in 14th in that number 7 car, managing to stay out of the walls and climbing double-digit positions gained. But Adam Young and Marius Valiocas both gained 17 and 19 positions. Great recovery from that 23 after having an end-of-line penalty as well. Richie Hearn was running up at the front in the early stage of the race, but slightly caught out, I think, with some of the cautions. He finishes in 17th, with Matt Taylor in 18th for the MadWorks Motorsports crew. Brian Hotham and Dustin Wardlow complete the top 20, while Danny Roberts and Cody Wenzen are your final cars on the lead lap. Will Gibson had a pit road speeding penalty in the first cycle of pit stops, dropped him back to 23rd. Unable to recover from there. Chris Fowler will be heartbroken, leading the field on the run down into turn 1. In that final of our restarts, he spins it by himself and loses the victory and is second in 2022. Rigney and Fraser get mixed up in that one. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Chris Reagan involved in that prior caution, with Craig Forsyth, Brett Accord, other cars not making it to the finish. 35 started, and many didn't get there at the end. Enzaldo Holmes, Daniels Godzo, and Tyler Graf through the 35 cars in this field that took to the green flag. Well, before we head down to HyperX Victory Lane, we head into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. So we're waiting for Jim Herrick to come and join us after a jubilant day for him and the 4D Sim Racing team. Still starstruck and gobsmacked at the way that it finished. Let's give a thought to Chris Fowler there, because you never want to make a mistake like that, and I think it was cold tires, DJ, that ultimately cost that number 20 car.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, we haven't really seen a car all day break away like that mid-corner, and we had just highlighted how the temperatures were falling over the course of the race down to about 87 or so. It's actually 84 by the time we finished the race out here. So I think certainly that is what was to call for it. Those cold tires just coming back to bite him. He was really the only driver out of the top 10 or so that wasn't doing a little bit of weaving, trying to keep some heat into those tires. And, well, you saw the results.
Well, let's head down to HyperX Victory Lane, where it's a jubilant Jim Herrick that stands atop of the field. Jim, you must be delighted right now. It's been a difficult start to the season for you, yes, but now a winner and finally getting into the top 10 as well. Talk to us about the emotions that you're feeling right now.
Yeah, wow, I can't even believe it. This is just great. I I couldn't be happier, man. I'm still in a little bit of shock. Things just worked out perfectly. I mean, I went from realizing that I probably wasn't going to make it on fuel, and so while everybody else was saving, I figured I'd just hammer down and go to the front and see what happens. And gosh, no sooner did I pass that first car and the caution came out, and I was just in total disbelief.
I mean, talk to us about that charge as well. It looks like you were just carving through. How easy was it, especially down low through the tunnel turn, a place that we did see a bit of chaos today?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't easy, even though those other guys were saving fuel and they were lifting a little earlier. The inside was a little sketchy, especially on older tires. Older tires freed the car up a lot and made it turn, just turn a lot better. So I was able to go on the inside, during that run. And yeah, but it's always sketchy. I'm always, you don't want to be that guy that pushes it down the inside and then pushes up into somebody and causes a wreck. So, I wanted to make sure that I was super cautious making those passes. And yeah, it was white knuckle action the whole time for sure.
Congratulations, Jim. Go break out the champagne. Go enjoy this victory. Hopefully you can build on this through the rest of 2022.
Yeah, thanks very much. I just want to thank the rest of my teammates too. Craig and Luke were doing some fuel calculation for me on pit wall, and yeah, just great to have the 4D Racewear team up here in victory lane finally. Woohoo!
Deserved win for Jim Herrick, but now we head to the man that crossed the line in second place. David Sirois put it on pole for the 4th time in his career. And David, before we talk about the race, I want to ask about qualifying. We thought you would be someone who would be up front and fighting for pole on the road courses, but all 4 of your poles have come on the ovals now. What have you figured out with this Lotus 79?
Yeah, I don't really know. I had very poor qualification in the first oval of the season, and this time with a double point race, I wanted to have a great qualification, so I worked hard on my qualification strategy, and it worked quite well today.
I hate to break the news to you, unfortunately this is not one of the double point races. Only Indianapolis and Auto Club from the rulebook are double point races. But with that said, you slipped backwards at the middle portion of the race, but you were able to fight your way through. What was happening and what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I was saving the tires for the end of the race, and I lost a lot of place in the first stint. I nearly lost faith in my strategy, but after my first pit, my tires were going good after my first pit, while everyone else were struggling a bit. So I started to move up in the field, and it worked quite well today.
Congratulations, David. Hopefully this kicks you off as well. 2/3 in this 2021, and now from here, 4th, last time out. Looks like the momentum's on your side.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm still struggling in dirty air, so I need good qualification run to be able to race for the top 5 on the ovals. So I'm going to try to keep the same momentum for the next oval races.
Congratulations, David.
Thank you, and thank you all of you. Thanks to La Voix Motorsport, Ancestral Urbain, Mr. Lorty Design for the support, George Anzaldo and his team who's doing a fantastic job. And you guys also, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Over to the second David on the podium, where David Rodriguez joins us now. David, talk to us about that race.
Well, I felt like I did a good job, I had a pretty poor start to the season, and I've just been consistently getting better, so I'm really happy with the podium right now. I thought that, I should have followed before all the string of cautions at the end. I felt like I could have won by making the move down the inside, but I chose to back off there.
At one
I think
point,
that's what cost me. Yeah.
At one point, we thought it was a fuel mileage race. How confident were you on the fuel compared to those around you?
I feel like we were all pretty similar. I know that Chris in front of me was heavily backing off, and I was trying to stay behind him. He wanted me to pass him, and I just wouldn't let him. I was really trying to save as much as I could there, so it ended up not paying off because of the string of cautions, but it looked like for a moment that it would.
Well, ultimately still a good day for you in what's been a somewhat difficult start for the season. Still leading the Rookie Championship. Best of luck for the rest of 2022, David.
Thank you.
David Rodriguez rounds out our podium interviews, and before we say goodbye, DJ, let's look forward. It's been a crazy start to the season, back to back to back. It's almost like these drivers haven't really been able to take a breath, especially the ones that are competing in multiple Lionheart competitions. But now we get a couple of weeks before Phillip Island, a couple of weeks after that to Brands Hatch, and it spreads itself out just a little bit more, which is good. But next up is by no means an easy track. We saw plenty of chaos at Phillip Island last year, and if tires are a factor, we should expect plenty more.
We should indeed. A very abrasive surface that particularly punishes the right rears around that circuit. You're going to see a lot of that pit stop strategy coming into play. You're going to see drivers changing those tires. Not exactly the easiest place to overtake, but when overtakes happen, Arjuna, they are absolutely spectacular without question.
It's a place as well that we did see, was it Richie Hearn put it on pole position? I think he did.
I believe that's right, yeah.
Yeah, Richie Hearn put it on pole. Now, not so easy from there. Sage Karam was charging from the black. It was a great race. It was a fantastic race, but that is in a couple of weeks' time. For now, we bid you goodbye, but before we do so, we'd like to thank those that make all of this possible, starting with the title sponsors of the Lionheart Retro Series. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulating manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit www.nextlevelracing.com. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com.
It's also sponsored by Butt Kicker. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt Kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump of the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. Tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Also, MOZA Racing. MOZA Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero delay, wireless technology, and made from high-end materials, MOZA Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane.
Gomez Sim Industry are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls, precision-built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. And it's not just them, but so many more that make it all happen. To learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series and to learn more about the three competitions the Lionheart sanctioning body puts on, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. It's a bit of a break. April 28th before the Retro Series and the Lotus 79s roar from the land down under. But Pocono will play host to plenty more Lionheart action. Starting next Monday, 11th of April at 10:05 p.m. Eastern, 7:05 p.m. Pacific. Join the Lionheart Speedway Series for the Graphics Esports Pocono 300. Then on Saturday, the Butt Kicker Pocono 500 presented by Next Level Racing. The first Triple Crown race for the Lionheart IndyCar Series in 2022. All that and everything else sim racing related live on RaceSpotTV. If you've not already subscribed to us, hit that red button, hit the bell next to it to get notified as well for every time we go live with a great sim racing series that we get to cover, including this weekend's iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour race. RaceSpotTV partners up with Radio Show Limited for uninterrupted coverage of all 24 hours. Join us live for what should be a fascinating race through the green hell twice around the clock. For now, though, we bid you farewell from the Pocono Mountains for now. A new winner in Lionheart Retro Series. Plenty of history being written in the Pocono Mountains. In today's MOZA Racing Pocono 250 presented by Extreme Scoring. Jim Herrick is delighted and is a worthy winner in the chaos that emerged in the final few laps here at the Pocono Speedway. We bid him congratulations and we bid you farewell. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined alongside by the wonderful DJ Clark. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time, but remember, more Lionheart action here in the next couple of weeks.